Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. My name is Zach. I will be the host. As you may have seen, we have some amazing guests lined up for today. Me and Frank Trigg are going to break down basically the entire Rizin 14 card, as well as some of the Yarennoka, the early event. Fight TV is going to be showing this card for people in North America, Mexico, and Canada. There will not be showing the Mayweather intention, but we may still get some news about that. I'm hearing rumors of Showtime CBS possibly. By any means, even though people are looking forward to that, I understand it is an exhibition and it's not going to be the best fight of the night. I can guarantee that. Rizin events, for anyone that doesn't know, are just spectacular. There's only about 4 or 5 a year. Their New Year's event is something indescribable. Anyone that remembers Pride knows that they used to do it even bigger for New Year's, and so you can expect Rizin to do the same. They started in 2015 on New Year's Eve. They've had 15 events. Not one has disappointed. I mean, I can't say enough about this organization and the matchups and some of the up-and-coming talent that they have. I encourage everybody to watch it. For $20, you're going to get your money's worth and then some. If I do hear any info on where to watch the Yarennoka or the early card, that is, and or the Mayweather intention fight, I will put that into the description or the comments. And I encourage everybody to leave a comment on who else they'd like to see on this show. It's going to be primarily dedicated to Rizin, but we are going to cover some Road FC, some Shudo, some Deep Jewels, some Deep Impact, some Rise, of course. Basically, some more of the Japanese MMA that the American audience may not be familiar with. As I said, today on the show, we have some amazing guests. Right now, we're going to welcome in Mr. Frank Trigg, who is a commentator for Rizin, as well as a referee. You probably see him you've seen him in the UFC reffing. He's a judge. He's a stuntman. He's an actor and an overall good guy. And last but not least, a UFC Hall of Famer due to his fight with Matt Hughes. So with that said, let's welcome in Mr. Frank Trigg. Of course, veteran of the UFC, MMA fighter, and commentator, referee. Anything else, Frank, that you are? I know you're a man of multiple things.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, whatever else is out
there. Hey, I wanted to ask you, first of all, because I've had some fans ask me, how did you get into MMA, Frank?
I was actually working with my judo instructor in Oklahoma, and he asked me if I'm going to Texas and beat a couple of guys up. I thought it was a one-off fight, like you just be one fight and be done for the night, but it ended up being a tournament, so I had to fight 3 times in one night. And I won the tournament. I made $500. That was it. So like we drove down, made weight, fought, and drove home, and that was it. It was like a 3-hour drive, so 6 hours in the car, and fought over 5 hours and made $500, and that was the end of the day. Yeah.
Was this before the regulations that you can only fight so much in a night? Because I did read on Wikipedia that your first fight was 10 minutes, second one was a few minutes. Aren't you allowed to only?
Yeah, those rules changed. I mean, we're talking back in 97, 98. So it's like the rules have changed tremendously since back then. I mean, back then it was still the dark ages. It was pretty much, in Texas it was legal, but only with open hand slapping. You couldn't punch anybody, but you could knee and kick them in the face, but you couldn't punch them. So it was very the rules were very weird. It was illegal basically in 48 states, and the UFC hadn't dragged it into the light yet. The Zuffa hadn't dragged it into the light yet, so it was still very difficult to get these things to happen.
So sort of like early pancrase with the open hand slaps, things like
that? Yeah, kind of that mindset, kind of that game plan, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, let's jump into this card, Frank. First of all, and if anything needs to be edited out or whatever, we can do that. But do you know if you're calling this fight?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I talked to Shingo, well, this morning here, but yesterday for him. Or today for him because he's in Japan. But yeah, we're good. I leave on the 28th and we'll be there. I land on the 29th, so I'll be in town.
Awesome, Frank. That's great to hear. Do we know what the pay-per-view provider here is for the U.S. yet?
No, they're still working it out. There's been some problems, but I don't know what they are. Like, I'm not sure what's going on. They kind of keep us out of it. All we know is that I asked them, I was like, hey, I'm getting ready to do this interview. Actually, I was like, I want to find out what I can tell Zach. Right. As far as the pay-per-view is going to be and all that. He's like, don't worry, there will be 100%. There will be a place to see it on the 31st. I'm just not sure where, but definitely, check Rizin, check my social media, check Joe Ferraro's social media because Joe's coming as well. We'll as soon as we know, we'll all be posting it, reposting it, reputting it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything.
Joe's going to be on the podcast later as well. That's a good news to hear, because I've been having people ask me just left and right, and Fight TV has been a really good source for these Rizins, and of course I don't want to see the commentary lineup change. I wanted to tell you guys that you guys do an excellent job of being quiet during the fighter intros, and I mean, you guys just do a really, really good job. Rizin's had some different people in the past, and so I'm really happy to hear that, and the fans will be too. Well, let's talk about, and I'm sure maybe you don't know the answer to this, but the early card, the Yarennoka, the morning card that they're doing. I believe that's how you say it. You know if that's
you're close. Okay. If not, I'll lie and say it sounds right.
Well, you know how Japanese is. It's hard to even get translations that are accurate with Japanese. I'm gonna have a wonderful young lady be translating some of this interview, and geez, it's just not easy. How much do you know any Japanese, Frank?
No, nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
I've been over. This will be like my 52nd or 53rd trip to Japan. I don't know any Japanese at all. Because everyone we deal with speaks English.
Oh, okay.
My boss, Shingo, speaks English. Sakagabara speaks English. So it's like I don't have to deal in Japanese at all. And most of the time we're in Tokyo or big cities. Yeah, he speaks English.
Oh, wow.
It's broken. He and I can have a conversation. It's conversational. He can't do an interview in it. He can't speak English for during the press conferences. He does a lot of it. And remember too, when you're dealing with someone as intelligent as he is, it's a lot about body language and understanding what he actually means as we're getting through the broken English. And then, of course, too, he has a translator right there next to him. So if I miss something, then they explain it to me very quickly. So it's very easy for me to get around without speaking any Japanese.
So your conversations with him are a lot easier in person, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. Yes. People totally, yeah. We if I have any kind of conversation that needs clarification, I'll call Shingon and be like, look, we have to get on Skype and do it via Skype. I got to figure out what he's actually talking about, and it gets very clear. It takes like a 45-second conversation, if at all. I mean, it's very simple.
Right. Okay. And before we get to this card, I wanted to ask you also, so how did you get your start in Pride? Because I noticed that was one of your first major fights, correct? Pride 8.
My management team had inroads to Japan, and they just called. I honestly have no idea how I got started. I just know my first fight was Pride 8 against Fabiano Iha. I was training in LA, and he was down in Huntington Beach, and we had to travel to Japan to fight each other. That's all I know.
Wow. What placement was that on the card? Because that was the same card that Sakuraba fought Gracie.
Yeah, it was right after the Francisco Breno and Igor Vachachin fight. It was the next fight right after that.
Okay. So it was early on in the card. Yeah. Do you remember? Yeah. Oh, okay. Because the Pride pay-per-views on Fight Pass are kind of jumbled sometimes, Yeah. All right, well, let's get into this card, Frank. I wanted to ask you what you're looking forward to on the Asunder card, this Yarennoka, the most. I mean, for me, it would be the Asakura brothers. Of course, Kai Asakura fighting Jay Moon, because he's lost to him in Road FC. Mm-hmm. If you're familiar with that, I'm sure. That's probably the fight I'm looking at. What would you say stands out to you on that undercard?
Well, the main event, when Kawajiri, anytime the Kawajiri fights, you got to kind of wonder. And the thing is, too, is that he's not young anymore, and he's definitely past his prime, but he still has something to give to the sport. And he's fighting a guy that's from the same township as he is, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how this main event takes off for that one. But yeah, the Asakura brothers are incredible. They're very good, but it's a question of how much have they developed over the last 8-9 months. How much more have they improved, because they finally got themselves in real training camps. They're not underground street fighters anymore. They're actually really doing training camps. They're worrying about diet and strength and conditioning, and they're hiring new coaches and trying to put themselves together. But is it enough time? 8 or 9 months, is that enough time to actually see a lot of improvement? I'm not really sure. We'll see what happens.
Right. Most of that's probably just training. How much more can you learn really in 8 or 9 months when you're in a training camp, the first fight with Kai and Jay Moon was TKO, I believe.
Yeah, Jay Moon caught him with I'm probably wrong, but I think he caught him with a hook. He caught him with the right hook, I think.
Yeah, no, and Kai's shown that he has a chin and can come back, and he's had some tough fights here in Rizin already, and the same with Mikaru. What do you know about this lion, this Takashi lion?
He's really good. More of a stand-up guy than a ground guy, which fits perfectly into the sport, into what these guys are going to do, because it's two stand-up guys. You won't see much ground action, but that's kind of what you want with these guys. You know, right now you don't want to put the Asakura brothers on the ground because they have decent ground game. I won't say it's good. It's decent, but they can be caught very easily. And if you want to develop them, if you're trying to make a storyline, you know, where these two brothers keep fighting, they keep winning, they're avenging their losses in the past, and they get to go through, there's a perfect matchup to put him against Lion because another stand-up guy. But Lion does have a habit when he gets tagged and gets stung, he'll start to shoot blindly. Just because he knows he's getting hurt and he's getting beaten to stand up, he'll try to take it down to the ground. But I don't know if he's going to try to do that against Asakura because I do know that Lion thinks he's a much better striker. But I actually believe he's a better striker, but I don't think he's a more powerful striker. And with these little ass gloves on, that's the big difference. I mean, you can be a better striker, you can be more technical, but if I'm able to hit you one time really hard, the fight's over.
Right, which is what you were known for. You know, and I wanted to back up just a little bit, and I forgot to ask you, when you got your start, you were known as a catch wrestler. Where did you learn this art?
Well, I actually wasn't known as a catch wrestler. I was known as a wrestler, and catch wrestling was but I trained with Eric Paulson. And so Eric Paulson was a catch wrestler, and he was the guy, you know, everyone's like, oh, he's training with Eric. He must be a catch wrestler. I was just a wrestler. I just learned how to wrestle through the University of Oklahoma. Then I was on the, trying to make a world team, an Olympic team for the U.S., and was traveling around doing that, and then got into fighting. And so everyone automatically assumed, oh, he must be a catch wrestler because the way that I wrestled was kind of a catch style anyway, which I didn't even know what the hell it was. But now I'm very much a catch wrestler. I have a black belt in catch wrestling on the Neil Melanson. I'm very much one of those catch guys, you know, and really my start in it really was with Eric Paulson back in 2000 or 2001. I can't remember when. Okay,
and some other famous catch wrestlers, of course, are Sakuraba and the Shamrock Brothers, and you know, I mean, these guys.
Who trains Demetrius Johnson? Like all these guys are all catch guys, you know.
Yeah, and you know that I wanted to ask you about the. We'll get into the main event later, but as far as the rules go, Frank, you're a ref. What would you say to the average fan that's never seen a Rizin? We're going to get a lot of fans for this Rizin that have never seen it. I mean,
especially with Mayweather fighting on the main event, it's definitely going to bring a lot more eyeballs to Rizin once we get the pay-per-view situation worked out. Which I just got hit a little bit ago. It should be in a couple days. We'll know in a couple days. I actually was hitting him underneath the table, trying to figure out. He's like, it's going to be a couple days, but they think they have something in the works, and we're just going to get it done.
Real quick, let me tell you, I did read last night that the announcer for PBC for Mayweather Promotions is flying out to Japan. He posted on his Instagram last night, so he's supposedly announcing that. And, you know.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of guys coming out. Extra that don't really need to be there. It's just a typical Mayweather thing. It's just, but whatever. I mean, it's just neither here nor there. It's just how it goes. I may call the Mayweather fight intention. I may not. It's just, which is fine by me because they have to pay me the same whether I work or not. You know, I can show up there and be like, look, it's a whole different. It got completely changed. We're not using you at all. But okay, well, you still have to pay me. Like I'm still here. Right. So it doesn't matter.
And I understand that they want more eyeballs and stuff. But every Rizin fan and every true MMA fan I've talked to is excited to see Tension, do his thing, but this is a fight that we don't really need, and it seems like Mayweather has caused a lot of this pay-per-view confusion, in my opinion.
Oh, it's 100% from his camp. 100% it's from his camp. It's all Mayweather's problem. Like this has got nothing to do with Rizin. This is Mayweather and his camp, and really it's his manager / agent that's really doing everything. Like he's a complete. Mayweather did the deal on his own to fight the exhibition with Tension, and then once it got announced, all of a sudden his agent gets involved, and now it's a whole debacle, and he's the one that's really and if it gets done, it's because he had helped get it done, and if it falls all the way apart, it's because he made it fall apart. Like it's just he controls everything right now. When you got a guy like Mayweather, it's like having Conor McGregor. Like if you're Conor McGregor's agent, you kind of control what's going to go on and what's going to happen because he's just that good. He's just that big. It's just a big name, and that's kind of what happens. The only time Conor experienced not having his own way is when he had to fight Mayweather. When Mayweather got his own way because he's just the bigger star, and that's just how it worked, But if they fought in MMA, Mayweather or McGregor would get his own way, and that's just how the game goes. So it's like I said, there has been talk from the very beginning that we may call the entire card except for the Mayweather fight. And I was like, look, it doesn't matter to me if I can just sit there and watch the card because my seats are ringside, so I get to sit there and watch the card. I'm totally fine. If they're trying to push me out of the whole thing altogether, well, it doesn't matter. You still have to pay me. I don't care. Like, I'm booked for it. You got to pay me anyway, and that's on you guys. Have to take that out of Mayweather's purse. You can't take it out of mine.
And we'll get back to a little bit of that at the end here, but I don't want to spend too much time on that because while tension is a rising star, it is an exhibition fight, and who knows what's going to happen. I mean, I watched the Ali and Inoki fight last night, and that was really interesting. Of course, Takada and Burbeck, and there's been some interesting things that have happened, so you never know. But I wanted to let's stay on this undercard for a minute. You were speaking about Kawajiri with Satoru as well. He's not in his prime anymore either.
Yeah.
And these guys were champions of what was it, Heroes and Dream at the same time?
At the same time, but separate organizations. Yeah.
And so they could never get a deal done to fight each other at that time because they were champions for quite a while. I mean,
I actually thought it was going to happen in Dream. Because Hero had started saying over a couple of their other fighters, but not their champs. So I kind of thought it was going to happen back when Dream was around, and then very shortly after I thought it was going to happen, Pride got purchased, and it kind of shut everything else down in Japan. And really, that was the heyday of Japan MMA, and it kind of killed it. When Pride got purchased, it killed Japanese MMA. It's just now coming back along. But yeah, this fight could have happened. Geez,
10,
8 years ago. 10
Yeah.
years ago it could have happened like easily, and now both those guys have been in their prime, but now it's still a good matchup. It's still a good matchup. It's not an Ortiz versus Liddell matchup. It's a good matchup.
No.
It's going to be, and let's talk about that for a second. That matchup is only bad because the way the fight went. On paper, at the weigh-ins, looking at these guys training, look at the pre-fight stuff, the fight was a good fight. The only reason why I say it's a bad fight is because the way it came out is how it ended. Now, it was a bad fight, it's a bad matchup. But we didn't know that going into it. Nobody knew that going into it. We thought it was going to be competitive. We totally thought it was going to be competitive, and it was competitive for a little bit. And then Tito got his game on. So that's the problem with a lot of these older guy matchups. Like when you have these older guys, on paper, it looks like it's very good. It's very evenly matched up. These guys have both been out of the sport or both in the sport for the same amount of time. Have had the same amount of bumps in the road in the last little bit. It looks like it's very close. But then when the fight actually happens, one guy just seems to be 3% better or 4% better. And that's the biggest difference. The fight ends very quickly, and you're like, oh, wow, Satoru's gone. Oh, wow, Kawajiri's gone. The reality of it is that they're both gone. One just had to be a little bit better than the other at that moment, and that's how these fights go with these older guys. And these guys aren't extremely old. They have had a lot of wear and tear in their bodies. They have been in the game for a very long time, a lot of long training, a lot of I think Satoru's training. I think he's got a camp now. I think he's training a lot of other guys. So it's making it very difficult for him to actually train himself because he has other guys that are every weekend. He has at least two fighters fighting. So he's always got somebody else he's got to go corner and take care of and go there for weigh-ins and travel across the country for this and do that. Like there's a lot of different stuff. So
are we talking Shudo and Rise and some?
Yeah, all those things. Like these guys are getting, because they're older, they have their own gyms or they're the head coaches at their own gyms, and so now they have to train the next generation. And it's taking away from their ability to be able to train just themselves. So these matchups are very interesting. I'm going to see what happens. And Joe and I are not calling that morning fight, that 4-fight deal. We're not calling it, but it will be on. I don't know what they're going to do with it. I don't know if they're going to just show it with the Japanese commentating, but they're very concerned with us having to work a 16-hour day. And if we called the morning fight, then called the night fight, we'd physically be on the air for 16 hours. So by the time we got to the end of the card to call the tension and Mayweather fight, our voices would be gone, our energy would be gone. It'd be a complete shit show. So they're pulling us off that first fight early, which will be done by noon, and then the doors open up at 3:00 for the main.
Okay, so there's going to be some intermission there in between.
Yeah, a 3-hour intermission there to clean out the arena and reset.
And you do think that the Mayweather and Tension fight is going to be the last fight, even though it wouldn't be prime time for us here in America?
Well, see, that's the thing, is that Rizin doesn't care about American prime time. They care about Japanese prime time because that's where they make the most of the revenue, is on the Japanese broadcast. Whether it's from Fuji TV or a pay-per-view, it's Japan that pays the bill. So you have to kind of cater to where the money's coming from. And right now, unfortunately, the money is coming from Japan. So in America, you can't do a primetime situation. But let's be honest, it's Mayweather and Tension. Even if you have to pass out because you can't stay up any later, and then you wake up 3 hours later, you're still going to hit rewind and watch the damn fight. It doesn't matter. Like, we're all still going to watch it. Even when I'm there, I will be there, whether I'm in capacity of calling the fight or I'm in capacity of watching the fight. I'm still going to go home and watch it again. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to watch it again on whatever platform it's on because I want to see it. I want to see what the commentators are saying and what they're doing.
I think most people feel that way. I just, as an MMA fan and a true Rizin fan, it's like I said, I don't. That's not even the most important matchup for me. We're going
No,
to get
it's really
into
not.
that here in a
And that's the thing. It's really not the most important matchup, but because it's Mayweather, a lot of boxing fans are going to watch, even though they would never watch a Rizin before ever. They're going to watch the entire card because they don't know any better. They think that that's the best fight, so they think every fight's going to be better, 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 better. Then all of a sudden they get to that main event and they'll be like, oh, wow, that wasn't the best fight. Like, yeah, that's
right. Well, see, and that's why I wanted to mention this undercard is because honestly, to me, some of the best fights are on this undercard. The Kawajiri fight, you know, and the Asakura brothers. I mean, these are staples of what would be a Rizin main card in any other situation.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
You know, what do you know about this girl, this I girl that's fighting? She's the opening bout.
She's the opening bout. Not much, to be honest with you, and it's because so there's a weird situation of trying to get information out of some of these other smaller countries, whether it's Japan or the Koreas or Thailand, like, and trying to get information out. They're not as savvy as we are when it comes down to writing down records. Like, you know, off the top of your head, you know, right now there's 3 websites you can go to, and there's 3 different websites that we don't have the same 3 websites that we go to when we want to get information about particular fighters. They don't have that over there. So getting information for a lot of these undercard, early card girls, we don't get that information until we show up in Japan and interview them. That's when we get our information, is when we actually have the interviews. Otherwise, we have nothing to go on because there's nothing coming out on them.
Right. That
At least
makes sense. Yeah, well, no, I mean, even on the internet, you know, it's a matter of translating for me and trying to read what Saki Karaba says about these people. You know, so it's really hard for me as well. Speaking of fighter interviews, so do you get to interview every single fighter?
Depending on the program, yeah, we get there on the, like in this case, we get there on the 29th. They will be making weight. We'll have, like, we'll get in at like 4 o'clock. We'll interview the last 4 fights, last 5 fights. We'll get in on time by the time we get to the hotel and get upstairs, get checked in, and get up. It'll be like the last 4 or 5 fights, and then the next day is the press conference and weigh-in, and then the fights the day after that.
What is that like with the translators? I mean, because some of these fighters aren't even Japanese or English speaking.
Yeah, so you know, you get some Russian translators in there. You've got some Croatian translators in there. What's really interesting is when you have other Croatian fighters that are there, and then Crow Cop has to come in and translate. You're like, Crow Cop's translating. I'm a little out of my element right now because I don't care about you anymore. I want to keep interviewing Mirko. That's why I want to keep talking to him. So it's like it becomes really weird. But yeah, so they do a really good job of trying to get as many translators as possible that are needed. And of course, you know, they've got every Brazilian speaks good enough English for us to get by it for the most part. The 1 or 2 that don't, there's always somebody in their camp that speaks English enough for to make the translation. So there's always somebody around to help out. And we're all in the same. All of us are in the same hotel.
Okay.
Red corner, blue corner. We're all in the same hotel, except for the local guys. The local Japanese guys are at their homes. Everybody else is in the same local hotel. And so if there's a question after Joe and I go back upstairs, we'll read, and I'll hit Joe up like, hey, do you remember what this response was? Or do you understand what this response meant? And I'll be like, no. And okay, we'll catch them tomorrow. And we'll make a list of the people we'll catch tomorrow at breakfast. And we go downstairs to breakfast, and we see him. Oh, hey, can you tell us again what this answer is? And we write it down. Can you tell us again what they, and so we get all information just by sitting there talking to these cats. And you know, fighters are super approachable. They're super easy to talk to. They don't care. And they're happy as all crap to give you information about themselves. You know,
I bet. Would you say that the average Japanese fighter is a little more humble and fighting for honor? Maybe.
Yeah, because it's not that. It's the culture. So you have to understand that the Japan is a very service-oriented culture. They're all about serving you. It's very much service-oriented. They want to take care of you. You walk into the hotel. It doesn't matter if you're staying in the presidential suite or you're staying in the cheapest room in there. You know, with 5 people in the same room, they bow to you just as deeply as they do to anybody else. They treat everybody else with respect. So when you're trying to get these hype videos, like Americans are very easy getting a hype video out. I can't wait to beat Zach's head off. I'm gonna kick his face so hard the beard falls. Like, we have no problem doing that kind of stuff. Right. Japanese will not do that. It's not in their culture. It's culture for them. For someone to talk trash about somebody, it's not culturally respected. So you're talking about like Caldwell and Horiguchi when they're gonna fight. Horiguchi is like, no, this is a very tough matchup for me. Caldwell is very long. He's very lean. He's a much better wrestler than me. Like, I'm having a very difficult time. Shingo is like, he's going to have a very difficult time. It's a very bad matchup for Horiguchi. And Caldwell's like, I'm going to beat the brakes off this guy. I'm going to stomp on his head. You're like, okay, you can see the difference, but both guys are getting in the same space. culturally, you cannot get Horiguchi to talk bad about anybody. You try to get him to talk bad about somebody, he will not. He just will not do it. He gets very uncomfortable trying to talk trash because it's not in their culture. So it's not that they're more humble. It's not that they're more fighting for the warrior spirit, more like samurais, and more trying to follow Musashi Masato, the five rings. Like, it's not nothing to do with that. It's just the way they were raised as a culture. The entire country is very respectful. They're just very respectful of each other. It's just how they are. And so it's tough to get any kind of trash talking. How you talk trash? Knocking a tooth out. How you talk trash? Breaking his nose. How you talk trash? Like, was it? Oh God, what's it? The grappling guy used to always wear the tights whenever he would fight. Aoki.
Aoki, yeah.
Aoki. How he'd prove he'd break your arm. Like, he'd snap your arm off and then he'd get up and he'd point at you after the fight was over. That's how he'd like. And everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, he's such a bad guy. He's a rebel. I'm like, that's really not that bad. Like, that's
not that bad. Yeah.
We do that in practice. Like, that's not that big of a deal. But it's like, yeah. So it's like, it's kind of like that.
He's still fighting in one championship, I believe. Is he
not?
Yeah,
he still is. Still after it.
What kind of? Let me ask you this real quick, Frank. What kind of time are you on? You got maybe 20 more minutes?
Yeah, I'm good for 20 minutes.
Okay. Because I wanted to get your breakdown on some of these cards. There is a couple kickboxing fights, which is always a good change of pace. And this is what I'm trying to do: is get these fans that you're talking about, these boxing fans that don't know any better, these even MMA fans, UFC fans that. They're not going to stay awake all night, but they're going to wake up the next morning and watch some of this. There's some cards on there, or there's some bouts on this card that I believe if you're an MMA fan or you're a combat sports fan, you need to watch these. And I believe the kickboxing kind of breaks the rhythm a little bit in a good way, right? I mean, you're changing the rules. So that was what I wanted to ask you is what would you say the major rule differences are in your average Rizin bout compared to an average UFC or Bellator bout?
Well, you got to remember that UFC and Bellator follow the unified rules of mixed martial arts, and so it's a different. So they all follow the same rule. It's a 3 5-minute rounds, and you have certain fouls you can't do and certain things you can't do, and this is just what is happening. What is the reality of it is for Rizin, they have their own set of rules. So some of the rounds are, sometimes you'll see a fight will have a 10-minute first round and a 5-minute second round. And then sometimes you'll see it'll be three 5-minute rounds. And then sometimes you'll see it'll be all over the place. And the kickboxing has a different set of rules. And kickboxing is never really unified either. So there's kickboxing rules. And sometimes with the MMA fights, there's no elbows. And sometimes there are elbows. And it's like, it just depends on how things are going. It's very confusing sometimes for American fans because they're so used to seeing these particular rules and regs, and thank God, usually Jason Herzog is there reffing, and who's also when I ref, he's one of my teammates. So I'm always with Jason when I ref, so I'm able to ask him questions. He'll come out after, like, in between bouts, so I'll wave him over. Hey, I need an answer on this. He'll come over and I'll take the mic off, ask him a question, go, hey, just talk to Jason Herzog, I got an answer. This is what happened, because they have a different set of rules over there, and they're still not grasping on to the unified rules yet.
They don't have a commission, correct?
Say again?
There's no commission, no athletic commission for MMA.
There is a commission now, but it's being self-built. They're doing it on their own. So there is a commission, but it's being self-built, and that's part of the problem is the very early stages. It is not a great commission yet because it hasn't time to develop. The referees are still changing. They're still changing a lot of things, moving things around a little bit, making a difference. So for me as a referee that deals only as a referee in unified rules, then all of a sudden I see these weird rules with Rizin. They're not weird, but different rules with Rizin that it makes it difficult for somebody as a commentator to make that call. Like, oh God, you see it. And then remember, hey guys, you got to remember at home it's legal. Here in Rizin, this is totally legal. Head stomping, foot stomping, soccer kicks, like that's totally legal. You can't grab the ropes though. If you get over the ropes, you're gonna get a foul. Remember, there's yellow cards. You give you yellow cards, 10% of your purse. Oh crap, don't get a red card because now it's even worse. Then it's 20% of your purse. So it's like these games keep getting played.
And yellow cards also affect the score, correct?
Yeah, they do. Absolutely. Yep. It's like taking a point. It's like taking a point away. Same thing.
Would you like to see something like that here in America? Because
yellow cards deal with money. No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
But I mean, what we see a lot is, about recently that I saw, and maybe it was in Bellator, a guy kept grabbing onto the cage a lot of times. And I know this is the ref's discretion, but how many times can you let a guy grab onto the cage and get the advantage of not being taken down before you take a point? And we're not seeing that, I don't think, as much in American MMA as we should be. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, but that has nothing to do with the yellow card.
Right.
Like the yellow card would be the same instance. Like I'm not taking it out. I can have the yellow card in my back pocket, but I never pull it out. Doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing.
Okay, I get you there. All right, I wanted to move on here. Let's go to the main card. We'll talk about a well-known figure in the MMA world. I mean, especially in Japan, Gabby Garcia. Would you say that this girl is her toughest test yet? Her name escapes me right now. Her name is Barbara Nepomuceno, and she's a kickboxing champion. But would you say that this is her toughest test? Have you seen much Barbara tape?
Here's the problem with Gabby. She'll tell you she's close to weight, and then she'll be 30 pounds over. She'll tell you, oh, I'm about to make weight, don't worry about it, and then she's 40 pounds over. You're like, you don't know what you're going to get with Gabby. So is this her toughest opponent to date? Absolutely. This girl can kick, she can punch, she knows how to attack, she knows how to evade, she knows how to, and she's been working on how to stop a takedown. So Gabby's biggest thing is going to happen is that she's going to step in and try to hit this girl. This girl's going to hit her back. And I don't think Gabby's really been hit by anybody because she's so big. Like when you see her in person, she's so big. You're like, there's not a woman on the planet that can actually fight with her. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you don't have to go to Samoa, or you don't have to go to New Zealand or Australia and find some Pacific Islander women that are going to be able to grab a hold of Gabby. They're the same size, but those girls are playing rugby. You know, those girls are doing other things. They're not trying to fight because they're making more money doing other things. So it's like, yeah, Gabby's in a weird position because of her size. It's really hard to find people that will fight her but are also, it's tough to find people that she will fight. There's a lot of hype around Gabby, but she's only 4-0. She really hasn't fought that much.
And that's why I mention her is because most people that aren't aware of Japanese MMA that much, they know Gabby Garcia, they know Bob Sapp, they don't know the Asakura brothers like we're talking about, or the history of Kawajiri.
And look at everybody knows Bob Sapp, and everybody knows Gabby Garcia because they're gargantuan. Right. It's like, oh, it's a weird fight going on over in Japan again with this huge person. Who the hell are they fighting? Oh, this guy must, because he's big. We always think if they're big, they must be better. Right. More must be better. It's always a mentality as Americans. More is better. And that's the case we have to find with Gabby. Like, if she's fighting somebody that has an extensive kickboxing background but does not have an extensive MMA background. In MMA, she's 0-0. She's never fought before. So how is that gonna work into it? And we have to kind of see how that works.
And this isn't an open weight fight, correct? No. This is a contracted weight fight.
Yeah, as far as I know.
And Gabby last time missed by, I want to say 20-something pounds.
27 pounds.
Jeez. So we may not even see that fight. That's interesting.
Which is why it's early on the card.
Yeah.
Why it's because it can get scraped. You know.
Right. The next bout that I really want to touch on is Miyata against Rizin Yamamoto, and this is interesting to me for so many reasons. I mean, from the fact that Miyata beat Kid Yamamoto, she's 12 years ago or something, to the fact that Rizin needs a win just for his career, in my opinion.
Well, you're skipping over Ursin's mom is fighting on the card.
Oh, okay.
Earlier, Miyu was fighting on the card earlier.
Right.
So you got Miyu and Nagano's fighting, and then Miyu, who's great, a wrestler, Olympic champ, or no, she got out before there was an actual Olympics, but she was a world champion, and there was no women's Olympics at the time. Now there is, obviously. And then her son is fighting as he's not the co-main event. He's a swing bout, right? He's a swing bout. Yeah. Because they got Kanna Asakura fighting that sweetheart, which is another background story. Tenzin and Kanna date. Right. So the main event and the co-main event date each other. It's like you can't write these storylines. It's funny as all hell. But yeah, Rizin needs a win bad. He's 1-1. He's had a really, really hard time. Of course, Yachi is fighting early in the card, who's another one of Ursin's Crazy Bee teammates.
Oh, he's fighting before Rizin?
Yeah, Yachi fighting earlier?
See, I was looking.
They keep changing the card, how the card goes, and so it's tough for me to keep up with where the fight order is.
Yeah, and I didn't have an exact bout order. I was looking on the GYAO site, and that shows that the first bout of the main card is Gabby, and then the second bout looks like it's Miyu, then Rizin. But anyway, by any means, we'll go through a few of these fights. Regardless.
I got my first card. What I got is Brandon Hazley and Jiri Pochiska is my first fight, and then Gabby. But who knows? Let me tell you something. The only thing we know for sure, Floyd Mayweather and Tenzin Nakakawa are going last. That's all we know.
Okay.
Everything else can change. It all changes all the time. You never know. And a lot of it's got to do with you've got Darrion Caldwell and Kyoji Horiguchi fighting fourth fight before the end. It's Horiguchi. He's the second biggest name right now in Japanese MMA. and he's second behind Tenzin, behind Tenzin, because Tenzin beat him, and Tenzin's fighting Mayweather, so that puts him one step behind. But he's like the fourth fight before. You know, it's weird. Like, why would you do that?
We should point out that Tenzin beat him under kickboxing rules.
Well, you don't have to ruin everybody's day on that one. He could have just left it alone and let them figure it out on their own by watching the fight. It was kickboxing rules, and Horiguchi never fought kickboxing before.
Well, I'm such a fan of both, and such a fan of Horiguchi, and believe that he's one of the best bantamweights in the world. And I know he's fought a lot of his UFC career at flyweight, but he had to fight Demetrius Johnson really early on. Yep. UFC fans don't realize that he took a contract not because UFC didn't want him, but because he wanted to be in Japan with his master and help build the Japanese scene. And, you know, to me, that's respectable. Regardless of the card order, though, let's go through a couple of these bouts. And so the Miyu fight, do you think that this is a good matchup with Nagano?
It's a good matchup for her. I do see her winning another. Mika is good, but I see Miyu wrestling her to the ground and holding her down and getting another good decision victory out of it.
Would you say that part of Miyu's problem, though, is also her wrestling? Because she
100%.
She gets caught in a lot of submissions, Frank. I mean, she's a great wrestler, but she's also got some stand-up that I see, and she wrestles these girls to the ground and always gets caught in a submission.
Leaves her head up, leaves her chin up away from her chest, leaves her neck exposed all the time. She's always pushing like a wrestler, always reaching with her hands. So she gets her arms caught quite a bit. She gets caught in triangles all the time in practice because she's always reaching, trying to be aggressive. And I mean, it's a problem that every wrestler has when they first start. It's just that Miyu, she trains in Guam, and that's kind of where she's made her home now, is in Guam, and it's difficult to make that jump. You know, it's difficult to make that jump if you don't have a lot of people going every day beating you up with the same thing over and over again. She kind of has like a little small camp, and she's starting to win her way out of the camp. She's starting to become the best competitor in the camp. So as a result, there's not that many people that can put a task to her. But her wrestling is her biggest fault, but it's also her biggest attribute. When she gets in trouble, she can always wrestle somebody to the ground, always.
Well, and there's no doubt she has gotten better. You know, I mean, every fight she continues to show, less hands on the mat, better striking. I mean, I'm real impressed with her. But back to the Rizin fight for a minute. Why else that was interesting to me is because this is Miyata's retirement fight.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, Frank, as a former fighter, did you know that it was going to be your last fight?
No. No, I had no idea. I fought, and then I got into stunt work, and then realized I could make more money doing stunts than I was fighting, and then I got an acting role, and that paid me a whole bunch of money to not get hit in the head. And then I was like, I'm all in for this. Like, I never really officially retired. I just stopped.
Right.
I just stopped fighting. I never retired. I just kind of just stopped.
That means
I walked away and started doing something else. Yeah.
We might see Frank Trigg enter in the Rizin ring, you're saying, or?
No. You know, I have a number. I have a price that would cost me to come out of retirement, and I'm not worth that price in the fight game. You know what I'm saying? Like it all comes down to how many tickets can you sell? How many people are going to want to watch you compete? How many T-shirts? How many beers? How many nachos are we going to do? You know, how much hype is going to be around it? My number far exceeds my value. So there's no way I'll ever fight again.
Right. Well, and let me ask you, if you were to know, I mean, in Miyata's mindset, we can only speculate. I mean, he's a legend of Japanese MMA and Japanese sports, in my opinion. I mean, you know, a lot of people know him. He's been fighting a long time. What do you think that mindset is like going into a retirement fight? I mean,
well, I trained with Rena Couture when he was getting ready for his retirement fight, and he fought Lyoto Machida for his last fight. Win, lose, or draw. This is my last fight. That's all I'm doing. This is the end of it. He went out there, fought, and he lost, and walked away from the sport. And that was it. It was kind of the game set. Miyata's training, but he also knows his last fight. He's going to train very hard. He's going to train very well, but he also has to come to the realization, once you make the announcement, hey, this is my last fight, this is your last fight. You're not coming back from you can't do, especially in Japanese martial arts, you can't come back from retirement. A lot of American fighters I'm done fighting, and then they come back, and they're done fighting, and they come back. It's kind of that back and forth. You can't do that at all over there. So if Rizin beats him, he's beat. And then he ends up retiring. Miyata ends up retiring on a loss, and that's just how it goes.
Geez, that would be tough, especially because it could tie this whole thing with Kid Yamamoto, rest in peace, you know, together. I find that this fight is really interesting. And when Miyata fought Kid, he was 2-3, and I believe that's what Rizin is right now. There's a lot of strange coincidences.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you think we'll see him in Japanese MMA? Do they lay their gloves down on the mat? Are we going to see anything?
I don't know what they do. I've never been to a retirement fight in Japan before. This will be maybe I have, but I just didn't notice it. He might. I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to do. I'm sure they're going to do something special because he is a big name in Japanese martial arts, so he will be there. They will do something for him, letting him know it's a retirement fight. But what he does or what he doesn't do, I have no idea.
Well, and just back to your commentary thing earlier, I've watched plenty Rise Shudo events in Japanese, and I know she's so very little. Well, I've known some girls throughout my life and keep in contact, but I know probably less than you do. I mean, very, very little. Excuse me, sorry. Very, very little Japanese. But what I do know is, like with the elbows thing, it's hard to say. Hold on one second here, Frank. I'm sorry. Jeez.
Yeah, no worries.
My damn phone's ringing. It was supposed to be off. Okay, so what I do know with the elbows thing is without the commentary, it's hard for me to tell if there's going to be elbows allowed without Frank Trigg and Showdown Joe telling me.
And that's the thing is that I have had this conversation that I would like to see the Rizin put the order of the fights out on their website and put on a second page put the rules of what the fights are. But then underneath the fight, put like a bout sheet. Like, hey, these guys, this is the 12th fight, right?
Okay.
This is the first fight. These are the rules. These are the rounds. So they have it. So you can go to the website and look. Oh yeah, hey, this fight tonight's going to be 3 rounds, 5 minutes, no elbows. 3 rounds, 5 minutes, elbows.
When do they decide that with the elbows?
I'm not positive when that happens. I think it's done the week before the fight, whether it's going to be elbows or not. But I'm not positive. It could be done when they sign the contracts, when they do the contracts, 8 weeks in advance, whatever. But you get guys like Darrion Caldwell. He had 3 weeks to get ready for this fight. They called him 3 weeks before. He's like, okay, I'm ready to go. So he had, he's got 3 weeks to prep. So it's just, sometimes these fights get locked in late.
Right. Okay. Well, let's go to the Rena fight. She's coming off, of course, 2 back-to-back losses against the Atomweight champion Kanna Asakura, who fights Hamsaki. Great fight. But Rena really needs a win, in my opinion, too. And she did show some improvement in the second Kanna fight. What about her opponent? Do you know much about Samantha Jean-Francois? Have you seen her?
Jean-Francois? How can I say this politely? She's not very good.
Not very good. Okay, so this is a warm-up, a tune-up fight.
I kind of feel like it's a ringer fight for Rena. Like they're really trying to get Rena on the game, Okay. She is decent in stand-up, but has that weird French style of stand-up. Like it's not quite savate, but it kind of is savate. So a lot of really hard front kicks, like teep kicks, and then like really hard, like 4-punch combinations, but really no setups. But she's got a great cardio system. Jean-Francois comes in amazing shape every single time. But Rena also has a great style of sucking the juice out of you, so you can't do anything. And she just makes you exhausted because she's always leaning on you. She's kind of always pressuring you. You're like, I just can't get this person off me. And that's kind of her game. So we'll see. She's been having a real hard time lately, but it's one of those fights. Go ahead.
She's been having a hard time, I think, because of the takedown. I mean, I watched her go work with Ruben Asado, and once that happened, her takedown defense was quite a bit better in the second Kanna fight.
Which is amazing for someone that's a great judo player that all of a sudden can't figure out how to stay on their feet. Like, and it's not just sprawling and brawling and not just cross faces, but there's like even in judo you can learn there's ways how not to get thrown. And she just wouldn't do anything. She wasn't moving her feet at all. But also, let's not forget, Sato's a really, really good coach. So he did a lot of work with her and made her look a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you don't think Francois is going to try to take her down at all?
Oh, for sure she is. Absolutely she's going to try and take her down. But it's not her forte. It doesn't make any sense. And Rena's gotten better at it. I see it can be a little bit of a back and forth struggle. I think Rena might actually TKO her. I think she might go TKO on this one.
Yeah, she's really exciting to watch in Shudo. And for the fans that don't know, I encourage them to go watch the Confession series. These have been amazing, especially since they've been doing English subtitles. Lot of fighter stories. They've been amazing, Frank. I mean, better than
some of the best pre-fight work I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, better than everyone tells me, better than any UFC embeddeds or countdowns that anybody else is releasing. I mean, I hope they continue on that path. Okay, so let's get to the Kanna Asakura fight. Like I said, I don't know what your bout order is, but I show that as being before the Horiguchi fight, which is the co-main to Floyd. Either
Okay,
way,
it could be. I
uh,
mean, I have
yeah.
the Kanna Asakura fight as a co-main, so
Okay.
we'll both
Okay.
see when we get there.
Yeah, yeah, right. Either way, do you think that this is the toughest matchup for both of these women?
Yeah, yeah. This is absolutely the toughest matchup for both of them. Um, and it's a situation where there's a lot of pressure now on Kanata. She's really Asakura is really being looked at as carrying the next torch for the women's MMA in Japan, and Hamasaki is trying to steal that banner. It's a very tough fight. It's very evenly matched. Both are very good. Asakura is better at wrestling. She's a much better wrestler, but they're even on the ground. So even if she gets on top, it doesn't necessarily mean the fight's over, right? She'll take her down, but now what's she going to do with it when she's down there? She's going to get tied up. Hamasaki will tie her up, will slow her down, and they both strike just as good on top. Asakura is just a stronger striker. She just has more power behind it because she has that wrestling mindset. When she's throwing a punch, she's also shooting. So it's not just the punch coming at you; it's her whole body's coming at you. And you're like, do I stop the punch or do I stop the takedown? And you're kind of like you're caught in the middle. And sometimes you get hit by the punches, sometimes you get hit with a hard takedown and get blown to your back. And it's just, it's a very interesting matchup. But on paper, this is very evenly matched. The matchmaker, the booker, Shingon, did a great job of putting this one together. Like he did an amazing job with it.
No, I agree. This is, I think, one of the hardest fights for me to pick on the card because I've watched them both. I know Hamasaki was the Invicta champion, and then of course, watching the latest Confessions and watching Kanna go to 10th Planet in San Diego, she was getting submitted left and right, but by girls that were bigger than her, Lima Lay McFarland, things like this. Do you think that if Hamasaki is on her back, that she has good enough submission game on her back?
Well, see, that's the key. The key. We talk about Atomweights. McFarland just won her title in Bellator. Again, defended her title.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about someone that's 105 pounds versus someone that's fighting at some of her training partners are 125, 135, 145 even. And so you're like, I'm a 105 pounder fighting people that are way above my weight class. So yeah, you're gonna catch me. You're gonna make me tired. You're gonna catch me and make me exhausted. There's nothing gonna do about it. Even out of camp, she still only walks around about 110 pounds. Jeez. So you're talking about someone's giving up 30, 35 pounds sometimes to her training partners, and still in there battling and getting submitted. Absolutely, I don't think it's gonna happen like that. When both girls are 105 pounds or 110 pounds walking in the night in the ring, I don't think it's gonna be that big of a difference. I think it's actually gonna be a lot closer.
Okay, yeah, because the footage that they did show, I mean, she was sparring, I believe, with Liz Carmouche, Lima Lay McFarland, all girls.
Liz put a smackdown on her. It's funny.
Yeah, but
Liz put a crack on her. I was
like, but she was taking them down, Frank. I mean, she was getting these girls down as the 30 pounds lighter, like you said, which is really interesting. That bout is really interesting. Okay, well, I really want to feature this Horiguchi fight. For the first time ever, we're seeing a Bellator champion go to any other organization. Rizin has always been open to this. We see deep champions. We see Shudo champions. This is really great for Japanese MMA. But this is also awesome for the American audience, right? I mean, these Bellator fans are going to tune into this. And they probably know Kyoji Horiguchi. What do you see as the defining factor in this fight? Do you think it's Caldwell's size?
Caldwell's size. He's super long. He's super tall. He's very explosive. He's a great explosive wrestler. So he'll suplex you. He'll pick you up at a big hard double. And Horiguchi, technically for the weight class, is short. So you have a very tall guy for the weight class. There's a very short guy for the weight class, but they weigh the same. The lever arms, the leverage, the ability. Once he gets a rear naked choke in, it's very hard to get him off because you're dealing with six extra inches of forearm to kind of peel down. You'll deal with a guy that when he gets behind you, decides to suplex you in a matter of 2 or 3 inches, he has you completely off the ground. There's nothing for you to be able to do now because he's so much taller than you. Mm-hmm. So this is the biggest deciding factor is he going to be able to use his length, leverage, and explosiveness to be able to handle Horiguchi. Now, the big difference also, too, is that Caldwell is coming down to fight. He's a big guy that drops down to fight.
Right.
And Horiguchi's really 125-pounder moving up the fight.
So
that's the difference. Caldwell's coming down from 45 to fight at 35. That's why he's the champ. Horiguchi's going up from 25 up to 35 to fight because there's no more flyweight, so they got to go up to bantamweight. It's like, so one guy's going up, one guy's coming down. Caldwell is tremendously bigger. But will that actually mean anything when it's time for the fight?
Well, and Horiguchi's so fast at moving in and out, and you could speak to this as a wrestler. How do you get a hold of a guy when he's moving in and out so quickly? You know, and that was what I wanted to ask you. Do you think the ropes? How much different is it fighting with ropes than in a cage as a wrestler?
Oh, it's completely different.
It's called to have a harder time taking him down.
No, with ropes, it's easy to take somebody down.
Easier.
The cage has a little bit of spring, but it deads. Like you hit it, it just goes. You're kind of stuck. The ropes will bow, so you can take you can like bow them out and then wait for the spring back and take them down with the spring. Okay. On the cage, there is a little bit of spring, but it's not as much. The ropes are much easier to take somebody down.
And there is an immediate rematch clause in this, and I'm not sure I understood Scott Coker right. Maybe you know a little more. Is if Horiguchi loses, is he still getting the immediate rematch in Bellator?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the immediate rematch is worked out, but it's basically as it says. So the reason why they're doing it this way, someone's going to lose. Right. Somebody's going to lose. Right. So they're going to do an immediate rematch in Bellator. So now it's a cross promotion. So now we get 2 fights for the price of 1. We get to see if one guy's better and wins twice. We get to see if it's a split. Then we have to go to a third decision and see what happens. Like it's going to be one of those games. But I also too don't believe that the belts are on the line. For each person, each one walks away with their belt. Even though they walk away with a loss, they won't lose their belt. Is my understanding. That I could be wrong on that. The belts could be up for.
Let me correct you. I believe that the Rizin belt is on the line on this.
Okay, so the Bellator belt's not on the line. The Bellator belt will be on the line in the immediate rematch.
Yes, and contractually, Sakuraba said that Caldwell will be required to come once a year to defend the Rizin belt in Rizin.
Okay.
And if Horiguchi wins the Bellator belt, same thing. He's required
one. Okay, so you're doing both belts. Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
But I was unclear if Horiguchi loses, if he's still getting that rematch in Bellator. But
I'm sure they'll still get the rematch because it behooves Bellator to have Horiguchi over there and fight on a card too. I mean, it just makes sense. Coker's smart. It just makes sense. Sakakibara's smart. It just makes money. Like if you think about it, that this fight's going to make money, but now they get 2 fights out of it for the price of 1. You know, so one time Rizin's got to pay the bill, the next time Bellator pays the bill. And that's just how it goes.
If you could have another Bellator champion come over and face the Rizin top champion or contender, who would you say?
I mean, Bellator, like Gegard Mousasi, I'd love to see him come over. Mm-hmm. You know, we're still waiting on the heavyweights, Fedor and Bader to fight. Obviously, I would love to see either one of those 2 guys come over. Obviously, Fedor, because I called this Fightsman as a pride. I would love to see him make the transfer over to fight. Right. I mean, they have a lot of guys. Mike Chandler won the belt. I'd love to see Mike come over. He's a friend of mine, a fellow wrestler. Like I'd love to see him come over for sure. You know, the thing is, I like about commentating is I get to watch really good matchups. Like I don't care. You know, I don't really care. I don't buy into that system of who's fighting who and who's doing whatever. Like I'm not into that game. I really just like to see great fights. So for me to see like a Horiguchi make a slide across to Bellator, that's great. I get to watch that fight, him fight some other people that he couldn't normally fight. Like I have no problem with promotions cross-promoting.
Right. No, I think it's a really interesting thing. I don't think it's something the UFC will ever do. I mean, they show reluctance to even say another organization's name on air. You know, which is kind of silly, but so I don't think that's going to happen. But I do agree with you. I would love to see Fedor back. Gegard Mousasi would be amazing. The one place I believe Rizin's lacking a little bit in is what would be considered the welterweight division. Yeah,
they're welterweight. They have nobody really in their welterweight division, and I didn't mention Alimale McFarland either to come over from Bellator because they don't really have a women's division that can stack up against her. So it's like to bring her over to have her beat up a bunch of tomato cans makes no sense. And it's the same issue that they've got a lot of these welterweights. There really isn't anybody that's at welterweight right now that stands out, you know?
Right. Well, and with Michael Chandler thing, you gave me a thought that I didn't have before. Rizin has an upcoming lightweight tournament here in 2019. Maybe
I was really hoping that they do a cross promote and let Chandler in that tournament. I think that'd be awesome.
Would you rather have him in that tournament or fight the winner of the tournament? I mean, do you think there's enough competition?
I'd much rather have him in the tournament. because I get to watch him fight 3 or 4 times.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I just meant, is there enough competition, or do you think he would just run right through the tournament?
He'd run right through it until the champ. Like that. I mean, whoever the toughest fight is for him, that would be the champ. You know, and then I mean, yeah, she could hold him to whoever wins it. But the reality of it is, I want to see him fight more, so he'd be able to get a bunch of fights in. You know.
All right, I'm just going to touch on a couple more here, Frank, real quickly. The return of Shinju. She had a really bad elbow injury that she said that she fought with.
Yeah.
She went to a doctor and got cleared and fought the last time. I'm really excited for her. I mean, she's young. A lot of these people were speaking about her young, you know, but they're developing quickly. I think the talent is underlooked in Rizin. I think it's looked at.
Well, Claire's biggest thing is that she trains at Gil Melendez's place up in San Francisco, and that really Gilbert has a really, because Gilbert's wife fights, so he really has an understanding. Women's psyche is different than men's psyche. They don't think the same way. They don't train the same way. They don't. That's why there's always miscommunication in couples, because we look at things differently. Gilbert does a great job of really understanding what Claire needs. Like he really gets into her, like he really gets her into her psyche, and is able to help her and get the coaches to understand what she needs and how she needs to get better. And the fact is, he knew way before we did, and his wife knew way before we did how tough she is. She dislocated her elbow, didn't tell anybody. They knew, taped it up, kept training, went and fought, dislocated elbow, no tape on it, no tape. I called that fight, no tape. Fought. It was like, she's moving a little weird. Went in the back. She's like, dude, my elbow dislocated in practice like 2 weeks ago. Like, I'm like, you fought with that? She's like, yeah, it's still kind of out. I don't really know. And the doctor's like, you got to go right now and get this thing looked at. It was like, she's tough as nails, super pretty. She's a model in Japan. You know, her mom's super famous. Like, it's like this whole family affair thing. And so you make that assumption, oh, she's a model, and she, you know, red carpets and barely eats and whatever. And that's how she does it. And then she's really not that tough. And she's a tough girl. Like, she is tough as all balls. So yeah, they are really, she's really getting overlooked from an American standpoint, but fun to watch. Trains in America, speaks great English. You know, basically was raised in America, so understands English, speaks English almost better than she does Japanese, and an amazing person. Like, we have a chance to talk to her. She's a great person. This fight though is really tough for her. It's going to be a tough fight, even though Haba's only 0-0. She's got an extensive amateur career and really knows how to play the game. But it's one of those fights that Claire can really get her teeth into. If she comes out of it, she's actually going to be 4 or 5 steps ahead of somebody else that's 2-0.
Right. No, that to me is so interesting, and like you said it perfectly. This girl is so tough. Let's move on to Darren Cruikshank and Damian Brown. I mean, I don't see how this fight isn't just an absolute war. Would you?
Somebody's going home in a body bag. These two guys are gonna. Cruikshank's either gonna hit him with a spinning back fist and knock him out, or he's gonna miss the spinning back fist and step into a right hand. I mean, that's just what this fight's gonna happen. It's a question of it. Every time each one of them moves, you're like, "This is it. Right. Fight's over." Like, oh crap, and then they just keep going. It's like,
I don't believe Cruikshank has lost since he lost to Satoru. Correct?
I don't think so.
You know, and an interesting thing was
3-fight win streak now.
Yeah. Interesting thing with Satoru that I forgot to mention is that, for the fans out there, is that this guy has never been submitted, but he's never knocked anybody out, I believe is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such a strange thing.
It's a weird thing he has, yeah.
He's such a warrior, man. But yeah, the Cruikshank and Brown fight, I just, you know, who did Damian Brown, who was he fighting for? What organization was he in?
PFL? Is that right?
I think you're right. Yes, I think that's right. Okay, Yusuke against Johnny Case. What do you think the defining factors of this are? I haven't seen much tape on Johnny Case. I've seen most of Yusuke's fights, and unfortunately, he got knocked out last time.
Yeah.
You know,
it's gonna be Yusuke's haircut. That's the biggest deciding factor. What haircut did he get?
Did he? We don't know yet, right?
No one's seen it. I've been looking. I've been asking. I haven't seen it yet, but he got his haircut. Like, his hair is a problem. It was in his face the entire time. And last fight, he was always having to move it out of his face. And then when he threw that big overhand right and he missed, he went to look back, but it was all hair, and he looked right back into a punch. And so he couldn't see anything.
This is why you're one of the best commentators out there, Frank, because that was something I noticed, and a similar problem with Miyu Yamamoto before she cut her hair. That's why she cut it, because it was always It was yeah, and it was really getting her in submissions that she'd probably be able to get out of, but you know, her hair was in the way. That's
Yeah,
really
it's silly.
interesting. All right, how about Yuki Matoya against Justin Scoggins? The world is probably pretty familiar with Scoggins. He's fought, I believe, what, 6 times in the UFC, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 6 times, maybe 5 times.
And I think he had a winning record in the UFC as well. Also, so what do you think about that fight? I mean, I know I'm not asking you to make any picks here, but what do you think that fight's
I
gonna?
actually like Scoggins in this fight against Matoya.
Okay.
I like him a lot. I think he's a lot better. I think he's a lot stronger. He's a little bit younger. He's got the quicker hands, but it's also 135 pounds, and that's what Japan kind of seems to run the gamut, is they kind of control things. I'm really interested to see how Scoggins does,
Okay.
just because of his he kind of left the UFC with a sour taste in his mouth. I think they could have kept him if they would have negotiated better, but it just didn't work out. I think Justin's really up for the task on this one. I really do like him against Yuki, but Yuki's got such a good ground on top game. When he takes you down and gets on top, he's got such a good game on top for submissions and ground and pound that it could give Justin some problems, but I really don't see it happening.
You know, I was just looking at the record, and Scoggins actually fought 9 times in the UFC. Went 5-4. One of his last losses was to somebody on this card, Oka Sasaki, which
oh really?
Yeah, that was one of his last losses in the UFC, and so I wondered why they didn't resign him either. But anyway, let's get into that fight. Manuel Cape and Oka Sasaki. Cape is he's one of those fighters that you were saying about the not talking shit. He's the guy who will talk shit. We remember him hitting Ian McCall in the back of the head at the weigh-ins. And, nobody, but it seemed like his last fight, Frank, that he was a little more reserved and a little more quiet, and it seemed like his performance was better. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, he had a talking to. They sat him down and had a talk with him. Like, you can't be doing that stuff. Like, it's going to get fined. Basically said, you can keep doing it if you want, but you can get fined. So what do you want to do? And he's like, I like my money. I'm not going to, so I'm going to stop doing it. And he also got beat up pretty bad by Horiguchi. So he's like, he had to learn a little bit. I think we're going to see a better Manuel Cape, but Sasaki's so dangerous. He's absolutely incredible on the ground. He's a great stand-up guy, and he's got good motion, good movement, and he understands how to fight inside the ring. And I don't think Cape's really made the jump yet to understanding that he has to change up his camp and change up what he does and where he works out at. But he does get so much better every time he fights. He is a lot more calm. He's a lot more patient, which makes him a lot more dangerous because he is so explosive. He's not jumping at you the first 45 seconds and gets exhausted anymore. He's taking his time. And when he does jump at you, he's going to hit you with 2 or 3 things. If they land, he continues. If they miss, he stops. And that's what we saw in his last fight. He started backing off and circling. And then with Sasaki, though, he can weather. You can hit him with that kid with a bat and keep coming. He'll weather the storm and then come back. And he'll still be able to fight. So this fight's a very good match made fight.
He's very tough. Sasaki just fought in the UFC, I believe, a month ago, and so he's coming off pretty short notice thing here. I wanted to ask you real quick because you jumped on something. We haven't seen somebody like Charles Felony Crazy Horse Bennett back in Japan, even though he was a kind of a crowd favorite. Is that because of his legal trouble? Do you know this?
I mean, obviously. He can't leave the country. Like, he can't. I don't think he even leave his fucking county. Like, he's kind of stuck.
But is Japan so strict that sort of like Canada and the U.S., if you get a DUI here in America, you're probably not going to Canada as a regular citizen unless you got a work visa or something. Is it that?
I don't know about the rules and regs in Japan, but I have to assume it's his legal issues. And I know right now that he can't leave. Like, he's stuck into a certain area, so he can't go anywhere outside that area anywhere right now.
Okay, I thought I'd ask about him because a lot of fans ask me about him. Of course, he's entertaining to say the least.
Oh yeah.
And let before we touch on the Mayweather intention just a little bit, let's talk about the Yuri Prohaska and Brandon Halsley. His original opponent was Emmanuel Newton, who got pulled, and both of these guys were Bellator champions. Though Brandon Halsley was also a Bellator champion, I believe.
Yep. I really like this. I really like this fight. Jury's trying to get better. He has no ground game to speak of. He's very strong. He's very patient. He's kind of a weird dude. He's kind of a weird cat, but he brings that weirdness into the fight, which makes it difficult and an unorthodox way to fight him. But Brandon Halsley is an animal. He's an absolute terror. Now the question is, Does he come storming in and get caught by Jury really early and get stunned, and then all of a sudden Jury can overwhelm him? Or is Brandon able to dip and duck and get inside and hit him hard? This fight is going to be a great fight. I want to see how this one comes out. This is what's confusing to me. On my bout sheet, it's the first fight of the night.
Yeah, see, I show it as the fight before Kanna, and then Kyoji, and then Mayweather. So I show it as
so you show it late in the card. I'm like, and that's what it should be. It should be late in
where
the card.
Where I would expect it to be. And that's why, I thought maybe this card was accurate. Like you said, we're going to find out. Really happy to hear about the U.S. pay-per-view. But as far as Yuri goes, I wanted to mention that the only time we've seen him lose in the Rizin ring, I believe, is to King Mo.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And so this guy has impressed me more and more. I know a lot of people are calling for that Crow Cop fight. Do you think that would be what was next if he can win this fight?
See, I thought Crow Cop was going to fight on this card. So I thought Crow Cop was going to be competing, and I thought it was going to be against Jury. I thought that would be like his retirement fight. I do know he was trying to fight in the UFC, and he had to pull out of that because he got injured. So I don't know what's going on.
Crow Cop's going to fight Roy Nelson in Bellator.
That's right, Bellator. Thank you.
Yeah,
yes, like that. So I have no idea what's going on. I thought the Jury Crow Cop fight was going to happen now. I thought it was going to be on this card.
I read an article, and translation withstanding, because as you said, it's hard to translate from one language to another. Never mind from one to Japanese, from Croatian to Japanese, then to English. It's like you're losing half the story. But it was something like Crow Cop saying that they just didn't have the money to pay him for this card, something of that sort. But he would be back here early in the year for Rizin. That was his words, So
yeah, I think that they're very top heavy on the payments for this card, so it's a lot of the other guys, and Crow Cop's expensive. He rightfully so, he's expensive. So it's like I can see them not having enough money to pay him for this trip just because of what's going on.
Well, just not budgeting the amount of money, because a lot of USA fans are talking like Rizin's about to go under just because they paid Floyd. Is there anything you could clear up here? I mean, is Rizin not growing? We saw 5.5 million viewers on Fuji TV last event.
They're not going anywhere. They're fine.
No, I didn't think so.
Believe me, if they couldn't afford to pay Floyd, they wouldn't have paid him.
They wouldn't have done it. Yeah. See, I think people don't understand, and so I wanted you to clear that up, because people are thinking that, this is their last hurrah or whatnot. All right, let's talk about the Mayweather tension fight just a little bit. I'm not too high on exhibition things, but I do believe that Tension's going to go in there and try to knock him out. The question I have for you is, if you're Tension, or if you're just looking on this fight, do you think that he should rush in and put himself in harm's way to get knocked out in order to try to get the knockout? Or do you think that he should just try to look real good?
What are the rules?
Jeez. No kicking, no anything, basically. Boxing.
So if the rules are boxing, it doesn't matter what Tension does. You can't catch Floyd. If Tension's allowed to throw, let's say four kicks in a round, he breaks Floyd off by the second round.
Right.
So it's set up for Floyd to win. This is how it's set up for. So no matter what Tension does, he's not going to win. So he might as well just jump in and go for the knockout, because he's not going to win any other way. You can't outpoint Floyd. You can't outchase Floyd. You can't outdip Floyd. It's impossible. You can't do it. So you might as well just put yourself in harm's way and go ahead and do it. Okay. If there was 4 kicks allowed or 6 kicks allowed per round, then I'm like, Floyd's getting his arms broken. That's just he's gonna defend. He's like and get his left arm's gonna be broken hanging on his side. His right arm's gonna be broken hanging on his side, and he's gonna get kicked in the chest. And he's getting knocked out, and it's just what's gonna happen. So it's
and there was an article that came out of Tension's quote saying that he's kind of so sick of Mayweather's bravado that he wants to kick him, and people took that so literally, as if it's going to happen. But the 2 times we have seen American fighters go over there, they've tried to leave the ring. I mean, you think about Ali, tried to leave the ring.
Yeah.
Then you think about Burbeck, did leave the ring. And so I wonder if Tension even lifts his leg as a feint, because these kickboxers do that, of course, right? They lift their legs as a feint. I wonder if that's.
I'm sure in the rules, if he throws a kick, he's disqualified. I'm sure. It's the same thing they did with Mayweather, and McGregor. If he shot a takedown, he was disqualified. He threw a kick, he was disqualified. He threw an elbow, he was disqualified. It's just. They put that stuff in there. It's not a problem.
The good old Floyd rules. That's why, of this card, if you had to pick 1 or 2 fights that are, going to be the most competitive, what would they be? What would you say?
Hamsaki Asakura, Caldwell Horiguchi, Hazley, Jury,
Okay.
And then Claire and Haba are probably the best ones I could think of. I think Case and Yachi will also be competitive. But the other ones are going to be competitive as well. But those are my most competitive fights.
Awesome. And in just a few more minutes here, Frank, I wanted to ask you about your experience in Pride 8 compared to the Pride in Las Vegas. Was it the same? Let me tell you this first. Japan has a certain atmosphere that even translates on TV. It's the crowd being a little more quiet. It's just the way that they do things, the show of it all. There's something different that draws fans like me into Japanese fighting, specifically Rizin and Pride and things like this. What was it like? Were you under UFC contract, first of all, when you fought in Pride 33?
No, I was under Pride contract.
Well, okay. I didn't know, because some of the UFC fighters fought on that card because it was in Las Vegas.
Yeah, but they weren't on a UFC contract. That never would have happened. Wouldn't allow it.
Okay. And what was your experience like fighting there? I mean, as far as Pride 8,
well,
you didn't
Pride 33 was totally different because, remember, I fought and then I went and commentated the main card right after.
Right.
So that was the first time that had ever happened, where someone had fought the main card and also commentated the main card.
Yeah.
So comparing 33 and 8, you can't compare them for me, because one was my first fight, one of my second, third fights ever in Japan, my first fight for Pride, versus now I'm a commentator. I work for Fox Sports, covering the event 4 times a week. I have a weekly show with Jay Glazer. I'm out there with Mauro Ranallo once a month doing the pay-per-views, and then I'm fighting and calling it on the same night. So at that time, Pride 33, it was a totally different. They're totally not comparable at all.
What a weird thing to do. I mean, did you feel like your commentary lacked or anything because of that?
No.
That's what you would do it again. I mean, if you could go back and do it, you would have commentated on the same night.
Yeah, I'd do it again if I go back and do it, but I'm never going to do it again because I'm never going to fight again.
Right. And let me just ask you this: between commentary and refereeing, do you have a preference?
Reffing.
Reffing, you enjoy?
Yeah. I love reffing. That's why I don't commentate in the country. I only commentate overseas. I don't commentate in the U.S.
Do you think we'll see you reffing overseas?
And I have no idea. That's up to the commission. It's up to the commissions and the promotions.
Okay. Because you have not reffed outside of California yet, or have you?
Yeah, I'm licensed in Hawaii and California.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, you've been an excellent ref too, Frank. I got to tell you that I try to pay attention to these refs, and I know I've heard a lot of interviews of yours, and you've listened to Big John, and you've taken all these classes, and you've put in your just due. I can't wait to see you on some main cards here soon. We're going to end with just I just wanted to ask you, number one, is Lenny Hart, in your opinion, the best sports voice?
Yeah, she really is the best. Yeah, she really is. She's such a sweet lady. We talk every time that I'm in town, and she really does bring something extra, and it's very, very unique, where her whole style of doing it, just you want to listen to when she's calling somebody down for their ring entrance.
Yeah, no, she's I can't get enough of her, and I think the fans would agree. I know ONE FC now has somebody that tries to sound like her. Have you heard this person?
Yeah,
I've
heard it. They call her Lenny Hart. Lenny Hart sound alike. Like, it's a whole thing going on right now.
Yeah, it's a little awkward for me because I could tell that you're trying to sound like her, and so that's a little strange. How about the Cup of Noodles guy, Frank? You gonna meet him? Have you met him? I
see him backstage getting changed into his Cup of Noodles, but that's it. Just another mascot, another gimmick.
Yep. There was question out there whether it was Frank Trigg or not, so I wanted to clear that up.
Obviously not. I'm sitting with a suit on, ringside. How the hell am I the Cup of Noodles guy? And how would anybody ever think that if they see the Cup of Noodle guy in, and I'm talking about it from the commentating booth? How is that even possible?
That's pretty strange, but I think it's because they saw the Cup of Noodles guy mostly at the weigh-in, and then didn't pay much attention after that.
And I'm always in the back hiding out. Like, no one ever sees me at the weigh-ins. Like, I'm always in the back trying to hide out. I don't want to be any part of it. Yeah, I've seen enough guys in their underwear. I don't really care.
Right. And to end on this, Takada has been doing. He's a great man too. Does he speak any English? Do you speak with him?
I've never spoken English with him. So I'm not sure if he understands or not. But he's. To be honest with you, we've never had a reason to communicate with each other. There's never been a reason. I've always had. My direct lineage has always been right to Mr. Sakagabara. So that's just who I talk to, and I talk to him, and right now Shingon is my main contact, is my main person that I deal with. So if I have any problems or questions, I go to him first anyway. And really, Takada and I don't really. There's nothing really for us to talk about because he doesn't really run any portion of the organization that I'm a part of.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like he's the parts that he run, they're different departments. They're not part of mine.
Yeah, and he's commentating while you are, so
Yeah,
you know.
he's on the other side of. He's actually directly across from me. I'm looking at him.
Oh, interesting. Did you commentate any when you weren't in the arena? There was a few Rizin events where I want to say Cruikshank and
I didn't start commentating for Rizin until New Year's Eve last year. This is my 1 year mark with Rizin.
You've been in the arena every single time?
No, we were in studio up until like 2 or 3 fights ago.
A studio in Japan, though? I mean, you're still
you
there?
Fly all over to Tokyo and go to a studio.
That's what I wondered, because I saw Cruikshank, and then I can't remember the other kid's name right offhand. He's fought in Rizin, but they've done it on like a green screen studio, and I'm wondering, well, are these people even in Japan? And so that's interesting.
Well, yeah, no, you're always in Japan, but we just weren't in the arena at the time. They didn't have whatever. I mean, whatever their reasoning was, just didn't do it. Now
right.
Now we're in it. Now they're doing it.
You have multiple monitors there that you're looking at, and that's how you're calling the fights, basically?
No, I have the ring and I got one monitor.
Oh, okay.
So I can see what's in front of me, and I can see what you guys see at home.
Okay.
And that's it. Sometimes the same view, sometimes it's not. It's kind of gotta bounce up and down.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Frank. It's been nothing but an honor, and I truly appreciate it. And I hope we could do this again. I got so many more things that I'd love to ask you just about your career and refereeing. You want to go ahead and give people your social media sites and where they can check?
It's all Frank Trigg. All my social media sites are very easy. It's all Frank Trigg. One word on Twitter, one word on Instagram. My Facebook fan page is it's Frank Trigg too. I think I don't know. You'll see my picture. It's my head. You can't miss it. So.
I'll put all these links in the video description as well, and I'll make sure I send this to you. But I really appreciate this, and I appreciate your time, Frank. And you have a good one, and safe travels to Japan. And we'll be talking during the telecast. I'll tweet you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Zach. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Frank.
See you, bud.
See ya.
I want to thank Frank Trigg for his insight and his knowledge. Geez, what can I say? He broke down almost every bout on both cards and gave some really, really insightful things on as to who can win and how. I hope everybody enjoyed that as much as I did. Hoping to have Frank on as guest again, so leave some comments if you got some questions for him. With that said, we're going to transition straight into our next interview, which is Mr. Showdown Joe Ferraro, and he is also a Rizin commentator, as well as a man of many other things. He just called Titan FC 51, which is available on UFC Fight Pass. It was just a few days ago in Kazakhstan. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. This man has covered over 100 UFC events. What else can I say about him? I mean, he's one of the best in the game, and I believe him and Trigg together have a chemistry that we probably haven't seen since maybe Morrow and Boss. By any means, it's a pleasure to welcome in our next guest, Mr. Showdown Joe Ferraro. All right, I'm here with Showdown Joe. Of course, a commentator, a man of many things. I'll let him kind of introduce himself. Joe, how did you get started in the world of MMA?
Oh, my God. How much time do you have?
As much as you got, Joe. Your platform's yours.
I started... Okay, so the very first UFC was November 1993, and that's when I realized who is this skinny Brazilian choking out people. Back then, I was a boxer and a kickboxer with a little bit of wrestling, and I said, whatever this jiu-jitsu stuff is, this Brazilian jiu-jitsu stuff is, I need to learn it. And as I started learning it, I quickly realized that I could amalgamate the stuff that I was learning. I wasn't elite by any stretch of the imagination, but it was good enough to say, you know what, I'd like to try this and go pro. But I kept getting injured over and over again, could never put in, back then a training camp was like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But I could never put enough time in for a training camp because I was injured so much. And then just as time went on, I started meeting different people along the way. And before you know it, I opened up a clothing company, or co-opening a clothing company called Showdown Fightwear, which spawned a equipment company called Showdown Boxing. And that's how I got the nickname Showdown. Because people would go to events and like, hey, I need shorts, or hey, I need shirts, or hey, I need gloves. And they'd be like, go over there, go see Joe. And they're like, Joe who? And they'd point to the big sign, Showdown Joe. And that's where that came from. Then we sponsored our first event. And it was UCC 1. And that had the likes of, Sean Tompkins, David Loazo, guys at that ilk. We sponsored the event and met the promoters, met the guys behind the scenes. And they just said, listen, we'd love to have you. You know a lot about fighting. have you thought about doing commentary? I said, no. And they're like, well, just come in and give it a try. I did it. And ever since then, never looked back and started doing play-by-play, started doing commentating, had a pretty successful TV show here in Canada, good 7-year run with the UFC. And then, Titan FC called me, Rizin called me, and then we take it from there.
So how did you get into, what was your first Rizin for the fans that don't know?
The first Rizin?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's a wonderful question. I'm going to say about 2 years ago, it was a September. Let me just scroll through my screen here. I might be able to tell you in a sec here. I think it was Rizin 8. I could be wrong.
It was September or October?
I think it could have been September, October. I know Crow Cup, it was part of the tournament. So the first round of the heavyweight tournament. Yeah, my memory sucks, dude. That's what happens when you get punched in the head so many times. I think that was it. About 2-3 years ago.
Okay, and who do you remember who you called that one with? I'm trying to think.
Back then, it would have been with Heath Herring. Heath Herring was my first broadcast partner, and then we brought in Joe Warren, and then Joe Warren was, and then there was a bit of a separation with myself and Rizin and everyone else, and then I was brought back on, and I asked to have Frank Trigg join me. So.
He was a wonderful commentator alongside yourself. You guys are an awesome team. I hope that continues.
Thank you.
The news did get announced today for fans that don't know that Fight TV is going to broadcast this main card. There may be some issues with Mayweather and tension here in the States and Canada and Mexico, but we're going to see, we'll see what happens there. Let me ask you, Joe, what was this your first time in Japan? This first Rizin that you did?
No, I was actually in Japan before with the UFC when I was covering the UFC. I think the event was Frankie Edgar and Benson Henderson in the main event. So that was my first time to Japan, which was an eye-opening experience. It was blown away. And I've been to Japan many, many times, mainly in Tokyo. But I always look forward to going to Japan. It's just an amazing culture, an amazing way of life. It's just absolutely fantastic. So that was back then. Now I guess I get to go 4 to 5 times a year, so it's pretty cool.
Wonderful. And Trigg kind of told me a little bit about it, but the first time you flew into Japan, were you in a studio recording the commentary?
No. We actually did. We were at Saitama. I think the first show was at Saitama, and then the next few shows, I think 3 or 4 shows, we were actually in studio. So we're there. We're in Japan, but everyone got onto the bus and they went to the arena. Well, Frank and I, or whomever, whether it was Heath or not, we would get driven to a pretty big sports studio in Japan and basically got the Fuji feed without the Fuji commentary, just the live feed. And I just looked over at Heath, and even with Frank, I said, what we're going to do, first things first, take your jacket off. It's going to get hot in here because it's a very small room. The other room they put us in was a nicer room, but I said, no matter what, we're sitting down for 6 hours. It's going to get warm. It's going to get hot. But above all, take your jacket off. Crank the volume so it's bearable. That way you get the full, not the full, but you get as much ambience of the arena as you can. And there's nothing that compares to being inside that arena for a Rizin event. It's unexplainable. Like, I try and get people to understand it when I'm tweeting. If I have Wi-Fi, but if I'm tweeting or getting any sort of social media out there, I try and share it with the viewers at home. It can't. It's impossible. I got goosebumps just thinking about it. Lenny Hart's voice alone, the production quality, the crystal clear sound of the audio and the music, it's magical. It's a live. Forget that it's MMA, right? It's a live event. It's a live show. It's theatrics at its finest, and we do the very best to explain it to the people tuning in on Fight TV. But it's hard, man. You have to be there to understand it.
Well, and I mean, I've never been to one. Of course, it's a lifelong dream ever since Pride. But in some ways, I mean, just you talking and telling me about it, I also get goosebumps. I'm waiting for Rizin. It's the event of the year every time, not just the New Year's Eve shows, but even something smaller like Rizin 12. There's something to it that even translates on TV, Joe. I mean, there's just nothing like it. I'm an MMA fan. I enjoy to watch a bunch of organizations. There's something about, like you're saying, it's not an event. Some people think it's a spectacle. It's way more than I can describe. So I can only imagine what being there in person is like. So you're saying nothing is comparable that you've ever been to? No concert, no Nothing has that energy, would you say?
No. I mean, you can see my screen, so you can see me. Just look above me. I mean, those are all the UFCs that I've covered. And I've got, hold on a second here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those massive posters with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 UFC passes per each one. I think I've covered over 110 UFC events. And UFC events are fantastic, but they're different. I mean, being at a live UFC event, if you've never been, it's amazing. But the whole Rizin experience, you can't even compare it. And that's not taking a shot at Dana White's product or the UFC's product. What I'm saying is that it's completely different. It's the Japanese know how to put on a show, not just a fighting event, but an actual show. That's not to say the UFC can't do it. They just do it their way. They do what they want to do. With the way the Japanese guys do it, and just the live events team, it's incredible, man. Just the videos behind the fighters. I mean, did you see Andy Wynn's entrance to her last fight?
Yes. That's one huge thing to me, and my cousin and all the fans that watch with me is the fact that we see the intros. And I, just like I gave credit to Trigg, I'd like to give credit to you for letting that happen. This does happen in other organizations, as we know. I mean, you get to hear the entrance music, you get to see some of it, but the commentators start speaking right away. I've had so many people tell me, you know what, being able to hear the music, watch the whole entrance down the ramp before the commentators are saying anything. But back to what you were saying, the fact that every video is produced for every single fighter.
I mean, I remember Andy Wynn's intro. We were, Frank, his wife Jill, and myself, we were ringside, and we were told, okay, guys, you got about 45 minutes before we're going to come back and sit down and do all the sound checks. You know, do what you got to do. We've got food upstairs. And as I turned around and I started walking, bang, Andy's music came on, and it was the Michael Jackson song, Smooth Criminal. And it was so loud and crystal clear. I looked up at the screen and thought to myself, oh my God, the editing in this video and the graphics are ridiculous. This is unbelievable. And then I'm like, I was going to tweet out, like, you know what, just kind of got a small taste of what Andy Wynn's entrance is going to be like. It's going to be fantastic. And then I saw her message on Twitter where it's like, you have no idea. You have no idea what you're going to see. And the way we were positioned was the fighters came down just behind our shoulder. And I was blown away with that one. I know, like, when Mirko Cro Cop comes down to Wild Boys, out of respect to the hardcore MMA fans, you know, I told Frank a long time ago, I told Keith Haring a long time ago, let that one breathe. Let that one come from as soon as it starts until Mirko gets to the ring. Try not to say a word. Don't, just let it go. Let it breathe. Let that one be for the fans. For everything else and every single introduction. Now, remember, I think there's 21 fights this weekend. So 42 fighters. That's 42 entrances. The key for me when I do the entrances is a couple of different things. Work with Lenny Hart because, number one, every song has a different beat. Every song has a different cadence. As the music comes on, I don't say a word until Lenny Hart is done. Let her do her thing. And when the cadence of her voice starts coming down, because she also goes to the beat as well. Okay, so let her come down with the beat, and I'll listen for the 1, 2, 3, 4 count from the beat, and that's when I'll chime in. If it so happens the fighter's at the top of the ramp, they're at the top of the ramp. If they're in the middle of the ramp, they're at the middle of the ramp. If they're by the ring, then you know what? Whatever notes that I have, I'll condense them as quick as I can. And Frank can't say anything because the next intro is coming. But other than that, I try and do it. I've got a degree in recorded music production, so I understand about producing music and remixing and just recording bands, singers, and stuff like that. So I understand cadence a little bit. I understand exactly where to come in, where to stop, when to pause. Because people are like, Joe, sometimes you'll speak and you'll stop because I know the song.
Right.
There's a certain part of that song that should be heard, not my voice. My voice can come in afterwards, right? So it's there's a little small science behind it. Some people hate it. Some people love it. It's just how I am. It's what I do.
Joe, you do an excellent job. Let me tell you, since you and Frank Trigg especially have been calling these, it's made it the closest thing to pride that I've seen since in the best way possible. Let me ask you, do you speak fluent Japanese?
No, actually, I don't speak any Japanese. It's the same thing with a few other languages. Now, Do I understand Japanese fully? No, I don't. I'm learning as I go. But having been around Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the Brazilians for so long, I understand their Portuguese pretty well. But can I speak it back? Barely.
Right.
I understand Spanish, and Titan FC is in Florida. They've got a different sort of Spanish down there, Spanglish they call it, in terms of the Cubans, the way they speak it. But I get it, I understand it, and I can sort of communicate with them. If they speak, if they understand English, I understand their Spanish. We can communicate. I'm fluent, obviously, in English and Italian, so those are my two main languages. But and being Canadian, you got to know a bit of French. So I understand French, could barely speak it back. But there's about 5 languages that I understand. Should probably learn how to speak it, because I'd like to learn Japanese, but man, the nuances of the I's and the E's, you got to be careful with how you speak Japanese. So
it is you translating live for the Fight TV people, though, correct?
No, the translator is actually Shingo, and Shingo and I have been working together. Shingo's basically our contact. He's our guy that brings us in there. He's the one that sends our contracts over. And we discussed it a while. I said, look, a lot of the times when the Japanese fighters are giving their speeches, we all know the English-speaking audience, because on Fight TV, they want to know what they're saying. And I can translate, and I know it well enough that I could say verbatim. If I say what they say verbatim, it's not going to make sense. Right. But I know the theme behind of what they're trying to say because of the emotions that are involved. So I said to him, all you do is when you're ringside, we have WhatsApp, and I'm like, send me what they're saying, and I'll take what you say, and I'll know what to tell the audience. But we got to do it quick, and there's always a bit of a delay. So if you ever wonder sometimes why, if a Japanese fighter or general, male or female, speaks very, very quickly, I don't get that translation till afterwards. Now, if I know what they're saying, I'm not even looking at the translation. If I understand it, I'm just going to say what I hear. If I don't, I'll kind of make sure I wait for Shingo to send me the WhatsApp message, and then I go from there. But I would say 40% of the time I know what they're saying, but I'd rather be safe than sorry, seeing as he's fluent in Japanese and English. Let's make sure I get the right message across to the audience.
Well, and you said something really interesting, and for fight fans that don't know, that might be tuning in this week, Lenny Hart, I would argue, is the best voice in sports history. Forget combat sports. We're talking all of sports history, and I'm not sure that could be debated at this point. Would you agree with that?
Lenny Hart it's so hard to explain what she brings to these events, because she's complete and utter magic. And she's funny, man. You got talking to her when we're not working and we're just hanging out, whether by the ring or outside or upstairs or wherever the food is. Man, she will keep you in stitches. She's so funny. But the passion and the intensity that she brings to getting on that microphone and losing her absolute marbles. Her and Ota. Ota is one of the ring announcers. He's the bigger, heavier set ring announcer. Those two are by far my favorite in mixed martial arts. And take away nothing from Bruce Buffer, take away nothing from Joe Martinez, who do fan, like Joe Martinez is something else. I mean, Joe Martinez, in my opinion, that's what an American ring announcer or cage announcer should sound like. I actually just worked with Ricky Wright for Titan FC in Kazakhstan last weekend. Ricky Wright's a name not many people know. Man, this guy here, even, he's got that beautiful Welsh accent. He is the real deal. It's another guy that's really good. But when it comes to Lenny Hart, man, Lenny is something else. Lenny will just, that woman puts, it's whole, oh my God, you can't understand in that arena when she goes off. And there's been times, I'm telling you, where they seat Frank and I've always asked for them to seat us. So I'd love for the ramp to be to our left. I'd love to be looking at the ring this way. And I'd love to see Lenny Hart with my eye vision to the right, because I could see her right when she's going to start, and I can time when she's about to bring it down. She takes her deep breaths, and she just launches into those vocal symphonies. And then I know, bang, I can start talking, and I can look over, and I can see exactly, where the fighter is. So it's an experience, and it's magical, to say the least.
Well, and for anyone that doesn't know, Titan FC, I believe it was their Titan FC 51, correct?
Yeah.
That's on Fight Pass. The replay's up. I encourage people to go watch that. How long have you been calling Titan events, Joe?
Oh, man. 4 years. 4 years. I think I go back to Titan FC 39 or 40. One of those two. So, yeah, I started off as a sideline reporter, and then just sort of made my way into the play-by-play booth. That was the first company I did play-by-play for. I used to be color commentator back in the day, but then that part of the industry evolved more to fighters, professional fighters that have actually competed somewhere, sometime. So that eventually kind of pushed me off to the side. I became a sideline reporter, especially with Titan, and then they started putting pressure on me, saying, "Look, man, you shouldn't be a sideline reporter. You're more than that. You need to do play-by-play." And I said, "There's no way. No. Well, you're a damn host of a TV show." I said, "Totally different. Totally different. I write my scripts. I know what I'm saying. I know my producer when he's in my ear, what's going to happen." I said, "Play-by-play is 5 to 6 hours of being live. I steer the ship. Nobody knows anything. No one knows what you guys are saying in my ear. I steer the ship. If I screw up, I go down. I'm the captain of the ship. I look bad. My color commentator can laugh his face off, which Trigg does all the time, but I'm the guy. I'm the voice that people know. So I don't – no, I'm not doing it. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Trust me, we believe in you and blah, blah." And then I just got the courage enough to say, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to give it a try. And I'm telling you right now, I remember tweeting this out. I've never in my life been so nervous for anything than when I made my play-by-play debut. When my son was born, I wasn't that nervous. I don't think I was that nervous when my son was born. Doing that play-by-play, that very first one for Titan, I was on edge. I didn't know. I had to take a nap the day of the show to calm down. You're away from home. I'm alone. I really have no one to speak to, no one to talk to, and I don't want to bother people with my stupid little problem of doing a play-by-play. And then I did it, and as we went on, it got better and better. And then the show was over, and I got a lot of really good reviews and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, okay, you did it. You did it. And right away, whenever I clear a hurdle in my life, especially something that stresses me out, I want the next one. I called over Titan. I called Lex McMahon. I'm like, dude, when's our next show? I'm in. I want to do it again. And ever since then, I've never looked back. And now I've just simply fine-tuned what I do for every single show. That I wouldn't say I perfected it because I don't even think I'm that good, but I know what I got to do. So.
Well, us fans think you're that good, Joe. You were just in Kazakhstan. Did you get a chance to check out the environment, the scenery there?
Yeah, Kazakhstan is absolutely fantastic. I know when I announced that I was going to Kazakhstan, I kept it quiet for a while, even with my own friends, because I knew exactly what was going to happen. So I announced that I'm going to Kazakhstan, and the Borat jokes just started pouring in. Borat this, Borat that. I rolled my eyes because I know television, I know movies very well. Trigg's been in movies for about 5-6 years now, maybe more. And people were sending me either my own friends are sending me photoshops of me with Borat and stuff like that. And I just thought, I can't get that out of my brain. Like, you can't be thinking Kazakhstan is going to be like what you saw in the Borat movies. And when I got there, I realized that it's not like Borat at all. And the people there are unreal, so friendly, so fantastic. And I'm telling you, man, we got treated like royalty. Royalty. Now, I'm Canadian, but I was grouped with the Americans. So they think you're American, and when they think you're American, one of two things happen. They don't like you, or, man, they get out of your way. So there was – I'll tell you a quick story if you don't mind. So first things first. You and I are used to being in North America. You drive, there's lanes, you stay in your lane. No, not in Kazakhstan. There's no lanes, okay? There might be lanes painted. There might be dotted lines. No. Whoever gets in that lane first just goes. And they're nuts. They're crazy, but it's just the way it is. No one honking at each other. It's just the way they drive. The other thing they do over there is, or at least in Almaty, where we were. I can't speak of any other city over there. But just, the experience that I had. U-turns are normal. Doesn't matter where you are. They'll do U-turns anywhere, anytime, blah, blah. I know here in Canada, you do a U-turn, the cop's going to be on you. So the day of the event, where I know it was going to be Shorty Torres and I that needed a ride to the arena. Next thing you know, I go downstairs into the lobby, and there's Dan Miragliotta, Shorty Torres, myself, Ricky Wright, and 2 other gentlemen. That's 6 of us. Thinking to myself, there's not a vehicle. They better bring a van or something, because how are we going to get to the arena? The driver shows up. It's the same driver that picked me up at the airport and that's been driving Shorty and I around to all the different places. Greatest guy ever. Talgat's his name. Just fantastic. And he walks into the hotel, and he's got his 5-year-old son. Thinking to myself, okay, dude, you better be driving a shuttle bus, because Dan Miragliotta alone needs 2 seats. That guy's a huge human being. We get out there, and it's like this, not even a minivan, bro. It was like, I don't know, it was like a station wagon, let's say. And Open the door, and I'm like, first, it's not my first rodeo, all right? I know to get to that vehicle first. I may not get shotgun, but I'm getting in that seat somewhere. I open the door. I jump into a seat. I already know Miragliotta's the biggest guy. He's getting the front seat. I get behind Miragliotta. The rest of you 5 are on your own. I realize, wait a second. 3 guys in the back. It was too tight. Another guy sitting next to me. He's comfortable. I'm comfortable. Miragliotta in the front. We have the driver. What about the kid?
Yeah.
Miragliotta grabs him, and the father, Talgat, says, no, don't worry, just hold him in your lap. And I'm like, what are you, insane? Right? In Miragliotta's lap? That's insane. Nope. So Miragliotta puts him in, gets in the front seat, holds the kid like he's got him in a seatbelt, and next thing you know, like, we're just crammed in there, and Shorty had enough. So Shorty Torres was in the middle. He's like, that's it. He's like, Showdown, put your armrest down. The other guy puts his armrest down. Shorty comes up. He sits in the middle. Okay, we're going. We're driving, not 2 minutes. We leave the hotel, and all of a sudden the driver's got to do a U-turn. Oh, my goodness. I said, all right. As he's making the U-turn, I swear to you, there's 3 other cars already waiting to make U-turns, okay? So he goes into, I guess, option number 4, right? As we go into option number 4, bang, flashlight on us. Bang, 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 bang. Police sirens, police lights going off, and I'm like, oh, no. Oh, my gosh, what is happening? We have to get to the arena. We're already late. Okay. The cop, he's like, he waves the cops off. He's like, no, I'm not pulling over. Like, dude, you got to pull over. Miragliotta's like, dude, you got to pull over. What are you, crazy? Like, we're tourists. You got to pull over. He's like, fine. like he's upset with us. He pulls over, and we're sitting there going, oh, my God, like, we're toast. Like, does everyone have their passports on them? We're so toast right now. We're all getting charged, blah, blah. Dude gets out of the vehicle, fearless, gets out, and he starts yelling at the cops. And we're like, oh, God, what are you doing? What are you, nuts? Right? Miragliotta's like, oh, we're toast. Like, we're not making it to the fight. When somebody texts Titan, text Lex, we're not going to make it to the show. All right, no problem. Next thing you know, we hear the yelling, and blah, 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 blah. And we sort of, wait, what's going on here? One of the cops comes over, opens the door, flashes the light on all our faces, looks at the driver and says, get out, go, go, go. So the driver gets back in the seat, all calm and all happy, and I'm like, how in the heck are you calm and happy? You just got pulled over by the cops. You're yelling at cops. You didn't get arrested? He's like, he knows who we are. He knows who we are. So here's the background, real quick. We were there in Kazakhstan. The guy in the main event's name was Babit Nazarov. Okay? Babit Nazarov, obviously being from Kazakhstan, is a star over there. But his brother, his older brother, is like an ambassador. This guy, to Canadians, it's almost like the Wayne Gretzky of Canada. You know, to the Americans, I don't know how let's just throw any major, Magic Johnson, whatever, okay? This guy is a dignitary. So the driver told the cops, do you have any idea who's in the vehicle? It's all the Americans brought in by this guy to do the Titan FC show. We got to get them to the arena. You're the reason they're going to be late, and I'm telling him that you're the reason that they were late. That's why the cop came over, flashed the car, and said, go, go, go. And I was like, did this just really happen? And that's Kazakhstan. That's one of my memories of Kazakhstan, other than the great hospitality. But, man, that was absolutely
that's amazing. What do you do on your free time in, say, Japan? I mean, I know you're flying out when? Tomorrow?
I leave tomorrow. Yeah, I leave tomorrow, so it's a good 12-hour flight. So by the time I get down there, then you got the 14-hour time difference. All depends. Honestly, if it's not for, this may sound weird because people think I'm very extroverted. I'm actually very introverted. So if Trigg isn't there and his wife Jill aren't there, I will literally stay in my hotel room the whole trip. Netflix, watching fights. I also run my own businesses over here, so I've got plenty of things to do. I'm not in my 20s or my 30s anymore. Back in the UFC days where, I'm in Vegas 6 times a year. There's plenty of things to do. Blah,
right.
blah. The one thing I don't do, and even when I go down to Titan, like South Florida, dude, think about it for a second. The beach is 5 minutes from my hotel. I'll stay in my hotel. I've never had the ability. I don't know what it is about me. I think maybe it's just weird, but I don't have the ability to go out on my own. Never had it. You'll never catch me at a bar. Maybe the hotel lobby bar. I want to grab a bite, whatever, see if anyone I know is there. But other than that, I just don't like being around. I don't go out alone. I don't tour much. I don't just grab a cab and go see a landmark or whatever. If Frank's going to do it, I get the text or the call saying, hey, man, we're taking the subway to downtown Tokyo, or we're going here, we're going there. You're coming with us. You're not staying in your room, right? I'll go out. If a bunch of people with the team are like, hey, man, we're going out for dinner, or we're going to this club, or we're going to this bar, or we're going to this tourist destination, you're coming. All right, I'll do it. But if I'm alone, then I can stay in my room and just work and work and work and work. Netflix or just watch whatever all day, all night, man. So
you're saying we got to drag you out of the hotel, huh, Joe?
No, you know what? It's not. I don't know if it's dragging. I think it's a good point. I think you're valid with what you just said. I don't know if it's dragging. I guess I just need an invitation to have somebody with me, because I don't like. I feel like a creep going out on my own and walking around. I don't know. Maybe it's just strange because I know there's millions of people that travel on their own. I just feel weird, man. I need a friend or someone to hang out with. To say, yeah, man, let's go grab a beer. Let's go grab a drink. Let's go grab some wings. Let's go, let's just go for a walk. Let's do something. Yeah, I'll do it. Just need an invitation. I'm good to go.
So then I take it that then you go to what, the weigh-ins will be the next event that you're at for Rizin?
Well, yeah, I think the weigh-ins are what? So I land there would be the 29th, and the weigh-ins would be the
next day.
30th. Yeah. So we'll be at the weigh-ins. If the weigh-ins are going to be, well, it doesn't matter. If the weigh-ins are at the hotel, we're laughing. We got to take an elevator a couple of floors, and we get there. But if the elevators are off-site, yeah, we jump in the shuttle and we go, or the buses. It's probably, well, Jesus, 21 fights. Well, probably 3 buses this time. So 2 or 3 buses, and Frank and I get on those buses and pray that there's Wi-Fi when we get there. Now we go from there.
And you guys are not calling the Yarennoka card, correct?
I don't know. I haven't heard word from anyone from Japan regarding this card. The one thing about dealing with the Japanese is they are beyond professional. They are fantastic, but you don't know anything until the last second, right? So I don't know. I could probably get to the hotel on Saturday, right? Saturday, right. Yeah. I get there on Saturday, and they can just hand me what they usually do is they hand me my itinerary, my per diem, and stuff like that, and my full schedule of where I need to be every day for the next 2 or 3 days. That's the one thing I love about them is you never have to ask any questions. You get there, they hand you your itinerary, you know exactly what you're doing for the next 2, 3, or 4 days. But right now, I don't know. I did send off a question saying, look, I just when they announced the Heisei show, I was like, wait a second, this is Frank and I have to be at the arena from 8 a.m. until midnight. Like, am I bringing 2 suits? Can I shower afterwards? Like, what are we doing here, right? I haven't had any word yet, which leads me to believe we may not be calling it. I don't know.
Well, I believe Frank told me that per his contract that 13 hours, 16 hours, whatever it's going to be, that would just be too taxing, and I don't believe that they're going to ask you guys to do that. Would you be open to that though? If they, you'd be able to call for 13 hours of fights?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem. I mean, that's what warm water lemon's for, right? So as long as it's again, I think I know what Frank is also saying. There's a compensation aspect to that, right? So if you're calling 2 events in one day, that we're not employees, we're independent contractors, and we're contracted to do X amount of things. If you're doubling it up or increasing it, then there's a compensation factor. I got no problem talking to them about that. I'm cool with whatever, right? But can I call all those fights? Absolutely. I just need, make sure there's lemon and warm water. I'll be good to go, and make sure that the food is healthy and nothing, no junk food. So, it's honestly, it sounds funny, but no junk food. And I'll tell you a story why, but no junk food. Make sure it's wholesome food, easily digestible by the body, and no crap. Right. So that would be my only demands. Other than that, I know one thing, that whenever I do a Rizin card, I can drink water all day. When I do a Titan card, I can't. I got to stop drinking water at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because once we go live on UFC Fight Pass, I think at 6 or 7 o'clock, I don't move from my seat until the show's over. That's 5.5 hours with no bathroom break whatsoever. At least with Rizin, we get 1 or 2 intermissions. So any of you guys that are huge Rizin fans, intermissions, you know exactly what Trigg and I are, right? We're running to the bathroom as quickly as we can, get back to our seat. When you're watching the Titan FC event, when it gets to the main event, believe me, I'm hoping that there's a finish in that main event. 9 times out of 10. And I've had a few 5-rounders go. It's not easy, but yeah, that's pretty much the basics there. So.
Well, I sure hope we get to see that early card in here in the United States. There hasn't been any word about that yet. Hold on, I think we had a bad connection. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, there hasn't been any word about us seeing the Yarennoka here in the United States yet, but I sure hope we get to, because you know, Kawajiri and Satoru is a matchup that should have happened 10 years ago. I mean, you know, one of them was the champion of Dream, and one was champion of, I want to say, Heroes or Sengoku at the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, these guys are legends, and then both Asakura brothers on that card. Normally those would be main card fighters, you know, if not this early card.
You would figure that the Asakura brothers would have been on the main card of you know, of the Saitama event, or sorry, the Rizin event there, but they probably put them there to get some ticket sales, because the Asakura brothers bring in a lot of people to their fights, and I think that's one of the reasons why they were put on that second card. But they are world-class fighters. Obviously, one being a bantamweight. Well, I mean, he's in a Mikuru was in a catchweight fight with Inoue. So, but yeah, I mean, those two guys, they just bring the pain, man. Those guys are so exciting to watch.
Man, and you know, Kanna Asakura and the rematch with Jay Moon here is going to be really tough for, you know, people that don't know. Jay Moon knocked him out, I believe, in the second round of Road FC. And so that's a tough fight for him. And Mikuru is always really exciting. As far as the main card, what would you say the matches you're looking forward to the most? Maybe the 2 or 3 top matches.
Oh, dude, really? Oh man. Okay, let's remove you know, tension and Floyd. Let's just get rid of that. Obviously, Horiguchi and Caldwell is going to be, you know, extremely high level mixed martial arts. I want to see Prohaska if he continues to improve the way he is, because obviously there's that talk about Krokop down the road. Cruikshank and Brown is going to be an absolute disaster. I can't wait to see that one. That's going to be fun to call. I'd like to see Rizin Yamamoto's improvement. Obviously, Miyu, she's getting better now, taking on Nagano. Yusuke Yachi and Johnny Case. I mean, that's going to be insane. That's going to be fun. Justin Scoggins. Manel Cape and Sasaki. Now, that's a fight. Oh, man. Well, Manel Cape surprised Frank and I so much in his last fight, because we're thinking, why is he taking this fight down to the ground? What are you doing? And he dominated. He emerged victorious. But, you know, Sasaki's taking a few lumps in his life or in his career, so we'll see if Manel can take advantage of that. But Sasaki's a veteran, and he's fighting on Japanese soil. Got to be careful.
Yeah. Will you get to interview each one of these guys for the fighter meetings?
I think based on the timing, I'm going to say no. I might catch 6 of them.
Okay.
Depending on when I land, I might be able to catch whatever final 6 are on the interview slate. I might be able to sit down with them. But the beauty of working – oh, by the way, Shinjo Claire. Got to watch her fight.
Yeah.
She's amazing. If anyone saw my social media and Instagram or whatever at Showdown Joe, you saw Shinju and I enjoying a nice little coffee. If it wasn't for her, I would not have found a coffee at that event. She saved my life, and she knows I owe my life to her, because if I don't go, like, dude, honestly, right? Coffee. I'm a coffee junkie. Coffee water. And Shinju saved my life. But yeah, in terms of this potentially getting 6. If not, the good thing about Shingo, who I mentioned before, that sends me the translations to be safe, that I'm saying the right things, he sits down as well as with some of the media and the Japanese, the locals for Fuji, and they sit down with each and every fighter, and they already know the 5 or 6 questions that Frank and I would like answered, because the reality is this. I have about 30 seconds to 2 minutes to explain who the fighter is to the English speaking audience. That's all I needed. About 5 or 6 questions is all I really need. As long as I get those 5 or 6, I already know enough about each and every fighter that I could say things that need to be said. Once their introduction is done, which is my end, we get to the ring announcer, or they introduce the fight, then it becomes calling a fight. No longer need to worry about their background. And that's where Frank, I just simply, to use a hockey analogy for anyone that knows hockey, I stick handle and I pass the puck to Frank. Frank scores the goal every single time. Frank misses, he gives it back to me. I stick handle, I go back to Frank. Calling the fights is pretty much the easy part. It's the introduction, it's the background, it's letting people know And so they can sort of relate to who this person actually is. And that's my job there. Other than that, you know, as long as I have that information, and I get it all the time, by fight day, by the fight day morning, I get a nice little booklet of each and every fighter, even stats and breakdowns and trends, which I don't really need because whatever happens, happens, but it's good to have. But just the background information with the questions that we submitted, and we're good to go.
Well, and so do you watch any video on these fighters? Let's give an example of Barbara Nepomuceno, who's fighting Gabby Garcia. She, of course, has not had any MMA fights. So do you go and look for her kickboxing fights if you haven't seen them? Do you do that kind of research on a person?
Yep, I research every single fighter per se, and I do it. Now, the original question you asked me, do you go out? Do I go out? And, you know, this is what I'm doing, right? And I'm not only reviewing what I already have, but I'm looking for new stuff because, you know, every fighter has certain trends at the beginning of a fight. Every fighter goes back to what they know when they're in trouble, right? So this is the kind of stuff that I look for. Now, is it my job to know that? No, that's Frank's job to know that kind of stuff. But for me to say, if Frank is saying A, I'll offer up B to Frank and say, Frank, well, this is what I know from his or her past fight. You know, what do you think that this could happen? And then we take it from there. But I pretty much, I mean, Justin Scoggins. I mean, I've seen, past 10, 15 fights of Justin Scoggins, whatever many he's had. Obviously, with Kawajiri, legend. You know what he's going to do pretty much in certain scenarios, right? The Yamamoto, mother and son, I know what they're going to do, right? So, or I technically know what they're going to do. Cruikshank, pretty obvious, right? Yeah. Guns a-blazing, someone's head's going off. Obviously, with Caldwell and Horiguchi, same thing. So, for most of these fighters, I know enough to say, okay, you know what? Here's what's probably going to happen. For those that I don't know, like you mentioned, Barbara, go find her kickboxing fights. Go find anything of her online on YouTube and just look at what's real, what's not real, and then take it from there. Because you know what Gabby Garcia is going to do. You know, in my opinion, she's going to try and showcase her own striking until Barbara really hits her. And okay, you know what? We're going down to the ground. That's on a surface level what we're going to see. It is a fight. It is MMA. We never really know, right? So,
do you think that Barbara is Gabby's toughest test to date?
I think Gabby's toughest test to date, right? I think she's in her own head sometimes. I think, well, all fighters are, but for Gabby, she's going to eventually, someone is going to cross her path, and it could be Barbara, and that's going to, we call it the humbling of the fighter, the humbling of the undefeated fighter, right? Some people will never get humbled. John Jones, I'll never be humbled, right? He is who he is. Great kid, known him forever. He's a man now, but he's just so gifted. He's so good that to humble John, it'd be very difficult. You'd figure Alexander Gustafsson humbled him in Toronto. No, John's still John, right? He's got to sell the fight. But someone like Gabby, I think it's in her own head. She knows, she's a tough fighter, but someone's going to hurt her one day. Someone's going to push her, and then she's going to have to dig. There's a difference between digging in jiu-jitsu when you're fatigued and you're exhausted and you're getting choked and blah, blah. When you get punched in the face, a different story altogether. So, it'll be interesting to see what Barbara brings to the ring on the 31st. But is she the toughest opponent to date? Tough to say, man. Tough to say. Gabby's Gabby, though. I think Gabby's toughest opponent is always going to be herself.
Right, yeah. See, and I personally think that Barbara is, from watching her highlights, that if Gabby's saying what she's going to do is try to strike with her, like you're saying, she's going to take that hit and want to take her down. But if Barbara's worked on her takedown defense at all, I think that she could hurt Gabby on the feet. You said one thing about John Jones. How can you humble a guy when you'll move an entire pay-per-view to another state for him? You know what I mean? That guy's never going to be
one. I've spoken to a bunch of people. For anyone that knows me, I've been pretty public in terms of saying I don't have what's called the steroid eye. I don't have the eye to look at somebody and say, yeah, that guy's on juice or that girl's on juice. I've got a very, very close friend of mine. Actually, he's a friend of mine's fiance, and he's actually a mortgage client of mine. For those that don't know, I've got my own mortgage business in Toronto. He was one of my clients, and he owns a supplement store, pretty big chain, like a really good store. But he's been around the weightlifting and the powerlifting and the MMA scene for decades, and he knows he can look at a human being and almost without a shadow of a doubt tell me flat out, juice, no juice. So I called him up, and we just spoke about this actually on Christmas, this whole John Jones scenario, and he said it's tough to say because the science is finally getting better, that there may be a situation where there are trace amounts of whatever, of the steroid that John had that could be in his body, that is being produced by his liver from what he took a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was. There is that possibility. It's also a steroid that can be in and out of your system within 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
Right? So he said, take it for that. And I said, well, you know what? It's not my call. I'm not covering the UFC. I'll be in Japan when this is going on, so we'll see what's up.
Will you get to watch the UFC while you're over there, or is it? You have anything?
I think we'll be able to watch, depending on the time, I'll be able to watch the undercards, and I think just as the prelims on the televised prelims are underway, we got to board the bus. So we kind of just start looking at our phones and see if we got Wi-Fi in the bus, we'll watch it. If not, we got to wait till we get to the arena and find out the results.
Right. Well, let me just ask you a couple more things here, Joe, and we appreciate your time. And before we go, number one, I want you to be able to plug all your businesses, your mortgage company, everything. But I wanted to ask you, who would you say is the most underrated fighter right now, or one of the most underrated fighters in the organization?
In Rizin?
Yeah.
Underrated fighters. I'm going to say, well, Manel Cape is one, and the Asakura brothers. I don't think the Asakura brothers are getting the love they deserve globally, only because I think they're absolutely fantastic in terms of what they bring to the ring, their skill set, their style. Remember where they come from, the outsiders and stuff like that. Like, remember how these guys were raised, and remember just the difficulty they've had to overcome, fighting not just each other. I mean, there's that video that we showed during their last fights, full-blown street fight with each other. And it's two brothers settling differences. That's how these guys live. So they've got the warrior mindset, and I think they're not getting enough love internationally as I believe they should. And Manel Cape just seems to be getting better and better and better. Remember, this guy messed up. I know it was a headbutt against Horiguchi, but he messed up Horiguchi in that fight. And if it wasn't for that, there could have been a different story. But yeah, Manel Cape is someone I believe is very, very underappreciated outside of Rizin.
Right. And what about the best fight you've ever seen?
Best fight I've ever seen, like I've ever called?
Yes.
Oh, man. Oh, wow. I can't put two names together in my head because I've been blessed to – I've called hundreds of fights. I've seen thousands. If you can run through your head and think of any train wreck of a fight where it took place in a phone booth and I'm losing my marbles, that's the fight that I like the most. And I've called so many fights before where it's just like, is this really happening? Like, these guys are nuts, or girls are nuts. So, yeah, anything, I love fights where the momentum goes back and forth, because it shows the human spirit, which is big in Japan, obviously. But it just shows you what the human mind and body can actually entertain and can actually withstand. Those are the fights that I like to see. I also like technical fights. The smart fighter, cerebral, like George St. Pierre, just cerebral, has to do what he has to do to win. In his early career, he was smart, took his guys down, finished them off. But sometimes you just like those wars, those battles, right? So,
would you say that you prefer MMA inside of a cage or the ropes like Rizin?
I like both. I really like both. I have no problem either way. I like the cage because of the safety aspect. I like the ring because it opens up a different sort of strategy, right? So it opens up the two different types of sport within the sport, right? Right.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. Well, for everyone that doesn't know, Fight TV, New Year's Eve for us here in America, of course, it's the 30th. Starts at 11 p.m., I believe, Mountain Time, which would be 1 a.m. Eastern Time. You could be seeing Joe and Frank Trigg calling it. And, Joe, I'd like to thank you for all your time. And I hope to do this again, possibly after the event, after you get home or something. Can you go ahead and give people your social media and where they can find what else you do?
Yeah, of course. And for those that do tune into the Rizin events, I'll tell you this. What ends up happening, some way, somehow, a certain theme will come up in the broadcast. I think 2 shows ago, it was fighters that had cats. A show ago, it was fighters that don't like the color green or cucumbers or whatever the heck it was. Some way, somehow, Frank and I become absolute idiots, and we figure out a theme for every Rizin show. Ghosts was one of them. I mean, we're dummies. Frank and I are idiots. Let's just be honest for a second. But yeah, if you want to see Frank and I, you can follow me for sure on social media at Showdown Joe. That's my Instagram, Facebook, and my Twitter. In my spare time, because MMA has changed in my life when the TV show was on the air, no longer on the air. I started doing my mortgage business. So if you're a Canadian looking for a mortgage, specifically in the Ontario area, you're looking for financing, joeferraro.ca. I'll be more than happy to review your situation and help you out. Obviously, no obligation, no cost to that. Just if I can help you out, I can help you out. Other than that, yeah, I'm a Canadian. I'm an idiot. I'll be in my hotel room unless Frank and his wife say, hey, we're going out. But other than that, yeah, just chill out, man. So,
well, feel free to hit me up, Joe, if you need any company or someone to talk to, man. I'll be waiting for Rizin as everyone will. And we'll see you on the broadcast. I'll be tweeting at you. Safest of travels. And I want to thank you so much. It's truly been an honor and a privilege, Joe.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it so much.
Take care, buddy. All right, we're joined here by a call-in. Mr. Muhammad, how are you, sir?
Good, good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We wanted to get your take on, you were at Rizin 13, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, I was.
And what was that like? How did you decide to go? Was it your first Rizin?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Like Japan was always on the list of places I wanted to go. And my friends and I were planning it, and we were looking at dates and discussing it, and I basically told them, I don't really care. When the schedule for Rizin comes out, I'll let you know when I'm available to go. So we were talking in January of 2018, and when the schedule came out, I'm like, okay, September 30th, as long as we're there for that date, I'm good. And that's why we planned the whole trip around that. I didn't care. Like, I wanted to see Japan, but September 30th, we had to be in Saitama. I don't care about anything else. And that's the way it went down.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where did you fly from?
Canada, Toronto.
And how long were you there?
2 weeks. 2 weeks. So we sandwiched the Rizin happened right dead center. So it was the halfway point. And unfortunately, for me, in my mind, it was all build up. Everything before Rizin was awesome. And then Rizin happened. And then I was like, all right, I'm good. Like, I can diet now.
Seeing the whole rest of the time.
That's kind of the story of our lives, especially with this New Year's event. It's like you get so hyped up for it, and then it happens, and you got shit to do after that.
Yeah, you don't have any idea. Yeah.
Let's get into the event itself. Of course, everyone knows that there was a typhoon that night. Did you guys know that was coming when you got to the arena?
Yeah. Like the day before, we were about to take a bullet train. We were a couple of hours away, and this guy, random dude, he saw us. We're getting our bags. We're getting off a train, and he stops us. He's like, by the way, just letting you know in case you guys don't know, there's a typhoon coming, and it's gonna be pretty heavy duty. And we're like, are you joking? And he's like, no, I'm serious, because they don't joke around. so we're like, holy shit. So we're walking, and the rest of us are like checking on our phones. So like I was the one in charge of like getting us from point A to point B. So I'm just navigating, and they're giving me commentary in the back. Oh, it's going to be this, like this serious, and this is what they're expecting, and this is where it's supposed to hit. And we realized that we were going to be in Tokyo when it was going to hit Tokyo.
Oh shit!
So we actually started freaking out a little bit, because then the guy said that you may have to change your plans accordingly. The trains might not run the next day. There might be damage done to the tracks. So whatever it is, you guys need to look into it.
And how far away were you staying from Saitama?
So all the hotels in Saitama were way too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But Tokyo is close by. Tokyo, maybe like 30 minutes away.
Okay.
So we just got a place in Tokyo, some crappy like hostel.
So you had to take the train. I mean, what would have happened if you wouldn't have took the train? What are you doing?
Slept in the Saitama?
I don't know, because and here's the thing. That's why I had to leave Rizin early, actually.
Right.
Like they changed the bout order, and that was awesome of them.
Right.
They changed the bout order because the Ministry of Transportation or whatever, they had said that the trains would stop running after 8 p.m.
Okay.
So the event was supposed to run from 3 to 10. They changed the order where they took care of the main event at around 7:30. And then after that, Darren Cruikshank and Yuri Prochaska fights were going to happen after that. And I wanted to stay, obviously.
Right.
But then, there's no point in because we could have always taken an Uber afterwards. They would probably still be running, or a taxi.
Okay.
But it just didn't make sense. So we left the arena, and then we got to the place pretty much barely in time, actually. Like, it's funny that it worked out because we got into the motel while it was starting to get pretty windy out in, like, the Tokyo streets.
Wow.
And then we got in, we settled in for the night, and then the walls started shaking.
Wow.
Like, we were in a pretty big building, and like, I could feel the floor of the building, like, wobbling, and, like, the windows were shaking. So it was pretty crazy, man.
Wow, that's wild. Before we get to your after the Rizin story, because I was in contact with you at that time, but what was, would you say that the arena was pretty much filled out by the opening ceremony? Because that seems to be a theme in Japan, that about 80% of the people are there opening ceremony, compared to UFC, where there ain't a damn person in the arena.
Yeah. They come in just for the main event. No. It was really, really cool because everybody that was going to be there was pretty much there.
Okay.
Before the event started, and it was packed. And they actually, I was a little bit sad about this, but they skipped the opening ceremony. They didn't have any opening ceremony at this one because of the time issue.
Right.
So all they did was they opened with the tribute for a kid.
Right.
But, I was expecting, the drums and all the fighters coming out, the lineup, each introduction and everything. But, given the fact that there was an incoming typhoon, the fact that they didn't cancel the event altogether is just like,
Yeah, you got really lucky there because,
especially this week, if I had gone to Japan and if they were like the UFC and they didn't give a shit about the fans or whatever, and they said, yeah, fuck it, we're canceling the event or we're moving it to Singapore.
Right.
Because this guy can't fight here.
You're screwed.
My whole trip would pretty much have been ruined.
Well, when I saw some video from you, what was your highlight of the night?
Oh, man. A single highlight. Holy shit.
That's
you know what? Bob Sapp and Osunarashi. That fight just blew me away. Like, and it's funny because it started, like, the entrances were crazy. And,
awesome.
like, he walks out and then Osunarashi walks out. And the people I was with, they're not, like, huge MMA fans. Okay. But when we saw a big Egyptian dude come out dressed like a pharaoh,
right,
everybody, they just lost it. And people started looking at us because we looked brown and they're like, oh, these motherfuckers must be from Egypt. And then he came out, and when the fight started, it was kind of goofy initially. And people were, all around, you could hear them laughing. And even between 1 and round 2, I was looking up at the screen and I could see Gomi. Gomi was like kind of laughing, and then he saw that he was on camera, and he tried to put the blank face on. And then the fact that Bob Sapp didn't tap within like 30 seconds, and the fact that the fight went the whole thing, people started off laughing, and they ended just everybody was standing and like giving a standing ovation because these guys really genuinely put it all out there.
Well, I think that's a negative that Rizin gets is because of Bob Sapp fights and Gabby Garcia fights. People think it's a circus show, but it's really not. You got to actually just tune in and realize it's not a circus show, especially this last Bob Sapp fight.
Yeah, I thought Bob Sapp showed more heart than he's shown in a long time. I don't, people accuse him of just taking any fight anywhere or whatever, but they forget this guy beat Ernesto Hoost in kickboxing. I mean, this guy has been a beast, and I was really surprised too, especially when he shelled up. I thought he was, here we go, he's done. But the entrances were something else. You got the video from the Horiguchi and Tenshin match. And much like we talk all the time, it's hard to root for some of these fighters in Japan. Like, that was I couldn't root for anybody in that fight. How did you feel about that?
See, I wasn't even, again, I was there just experiencing it. So it was a completely different vibe. Like, I went to UFC 206 in Toronto.
Okay.
And it was completely, and again, I'm also to blame because I knew I was in a Western MMA thing, so my behavior changed accordingly.
Right.
So I remember Tim Kennedy was fighting Kelvin Gastelum. And I'm like, boo. You know, 'cause I just don't like it. But like here, not a single boo ever. Like everybody is just getting cheered. Like either you're cheering for your person or you're cheering for the effort that they're putting together. So in that moment, it perfectly clicked in my mind why Rampage didn't like fighting in the UFC as much as he did in Pride.
Right.
Because they just have such respect for just anybody that steps out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the fights, you know. I was telling Barbara Nepomuceno, the girl who's fighting Gabby Garcia, I was in contact with her, and I was telling her, you know what, if win or lose, they're going to have you back if you show heart. Like, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
We know Rizin. I mean, it's same as Pride. You had Minowa man who was, what, 6-6, or, you know, had a 500 record. I mean, he had some big wins, but all of his losses he still showed heart in, and I think that that's a big thing. What was so the crowd was generally quiet until action happened? Because that seems to translate on TV.
Yeah, it was, and you know, it hit me the most during the ceremony for Kid Yamamoto. They had a moment of silence, and again, I was remembering in my mind how Radiohead came to Toronto a couple of months ago, and the last time they were in Toronto, maybe half an hour before their concert, the stage like rig fell and it killed some people, and they canceled the concert. So when they came back a couple of years later, they said, we'd like to have a moment of silence. And they're standing there, and people in the crowd are like, we love you. And like they kept talking, and they got really annoyed at that.
Right.
In this case, almost 30,000 people. It was like 28,000 people in this arena.
Yeah,
and it was at Rizin, and they said that, you know, now we're going to have a moment of silence, and they were ringing a bell every few seconds, and Erson and some of the execs were in the ring, and I heard a person cough from all the way across the arena.
Wow.
Like, that's how quiet it was, and I got goosebumps just by hearing that cough.
Oh,
and it was just crazy.
That's amazing. You know, you had also told me that much like any MMA fan that's been an MMA fan for a couple decades, that this was your dream to go to Saitama, right? I mean, this was long thought about.
It was unreal. It was honestly unreal. And like I got, it's a bit of, I got emotional. I'll say it straight up. I got emotional. I was there, and I was like, man, like, I can't believe that, because, you know, I started thinking back to the fact that I got into MMA by watching Rampage Wanderlei 2 when he knocked him out unconscious through the ropes. That's the first fight I watched, and I was like, holy shit, this is what I'm all about. And then to finally be there, and, you know, they kept, it's pretty much Pride. It's essentially Pride. Like, the ring is still white, the lights. We got super lucky with the seats, because the way the ticketing works. Yeah, like, and the way the ticketing works, you don't have any control over your seats. Like, I didn't pick my seats.
Okay.
They just assign them to you. And I just got lucky enough to have that view where it's like straight into the ring. So no complaints. It's just,
you know, we're kind of short of time here. We'll definitely link up on the post show, but let's talk about your after experience of UFC 229. What was it? 229? Khabib and McGregor.
Oh yes, 229.
Let's hear that story. So you had left Japan on that day, correct?
Yeah. I like a couple of hours before, and you know, my friends, their flight was later, so they stayed at the airport and they were able to stream it before their flight. And I was super jealous, but both me and my wife, she was heading to Dubai, I was heading to Kyrgyzstan, and we both missed the flight. And you know, the whole time I'm there, I'm just like in the flight. I should be excited for the next place I'm going to, but I was sitting there, I was like, man, I wonder if he got that takedown. It's just in my head. Oh, man.
Man, that's great. So how did you end up watching the fight?
Funny story. The plane landed, and it landed in Novosibirsk. I had a connecting flight. So I was supposed to be here for like 2 hours. And it's the middle, it's like Siberia, right? Basically, it's the middle of nowhere. It's cold ass Russia. And our plane lands, and I start looking around, you know, we got to get off the plane. And I start hearing fight commentary behind me. And I start hearing on the news, like news clips in Russian, And I think in my mind that like I overheard Bruce Buffer saying and knew, and I'm like, fuck, man, don't let this be the case. And they're saying Conor McGregor, and I'm like, shit. So now I'm like, I sat there, I plugged my ears a little bit, but I'm like, nah, I look weird, man. Like if people start looking around, somebody's gonna beat the shit out of me. This crazy guy with a beard is like plugging his ears and stuff. And I also considered maybe turning around and being like, hey, can you not? Can you watch this later? But again, I don't want to get beat up by that guy either.
Right.
And then I started hearing like actual fight footage. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy's watching the fight. So I tried to like busy myself. I tried to put in headphones, but I could still hear it. So eventually I didn't give a shit. So I got up, I turned around, and I just leaned over and started watching on his phone. And he saw me, and then he was like looking at his phone like this. He looked up and he saw me trying to see his phone. So he turned it sideways. And we both watched it. I didn't even talk to him, but we both watched the fight highlights on his phone.
Oh, and, that's unbelievable. So what would you, as far as your expectations, did it exceed them, and by how much, the whole event?
Sorry, Rizin or 229?
Yeah, Rizin.
Oh, Rizin. I don't know. Like my expectations were already sky high, but somehow it still managed to exceed expectations.
Let me ask: was there? How did you peel yourself away from trying to go to this one?
Oh my God, dude! I seriously toyed with the idea because I'm like, yo, I'm so close. I'm in Kyrgyzstan. I could just take a quick flight and just go. Like tension versus Mayweather. Why not?
Right.
But then I'm like, man, the government is giving me like an intern stipend. I don't have the money.
Right. Yeah, that's our excuse here in America. All right, let's get into this card. You got picks for the early card? The Yarennoka?
Yeah, I got.
Okay, here I'm gonna put these up on the screen for you in case you don't have them right in front of you, or so the people can see it, of course. And let me see. You should be able to see it in just a minute here. Oh, well, why not? We're gonna find out here. Can you see that there, Mohammed?
It's doing something. I think it's like.
Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
I could always edit this in later if you don't have these picks right in front of you. I just thought I'd put them up in case you needed them.
Yeah, but I could pull them up too. I have them pulled up on the side because I see that you started screen sharing. But yeah, don't worry about it. You can just go back to your.
Okay, go ahead. We'll just run through the card. If you got them pulled up, I'll read them off and then you pick. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
We got Ai against Nanaka Kawamura, and she is both kind of idol stars in Japan. Who you got in that one?
I'll be honest. There's a couple of people I don't know on this one, so I don't know who either of these are.
Right.
So no pick, I guess.
no pick on this one. All right. The first kickboxing match is Uchida against Konishi. Did you pick that one? No.
Actually, so I didn't pick the first three. Actually,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start with the Moon versus Kanna Asakura. Did you see their first fight in Road FC?
Yeah. So I have to go with Kanna Asakura, man. Like the two brothers, they're just. They're like out of an anime. These two brothers, that they're just these badass dudes that are like street fighting. Yeah, so I have to go with him.
And I tell people all the time, and me and Frank Trigg talked about it a little bit too. Is under normal Rizin circumstances, both brothers would be on the main card. People are looking at this card as if it's some kind of undercard. This is a good card on its own. Even though, like you said, yeah, even though we may not know, like you said, a few of the people on the card, pretty unknown to even people like us that are hardcore MMA fans. All right, what about Watanabe against Sugiyama? This is a rematch, by the way, if you didn't know.
I have no idea about this one. I don't know who either of them are.
Okay, and Takashi Lion against Mikuru Asakura.
Again, hard to pick against one of the Asakura brothers, and that's pretty much who I had. Okay. Even for this one.
All right. And lastly, but not least, the main event, Tetsuya Kawajiri against Satoru, a fight that I've been looking forward to for 10 years.
I got to go with Kawajiri, man. I think he's too big and too strong. Because actually, funny enough, I think I saw Kitaoka at Rizin 14. And it wouldn't be surprising unless he was out of the country. So I don't want to say for sure.
Right.
And then somebody comes in and he's like, hey, you're a liar because the guy was in like England at that time.
Right.
But this dude walked by me. He had a face mask on and I could just recognize by the eyes because he had the crazy eyes. And he was built like a fucking tank.
You know, we might actually seen him on TV, and it's very possible because he does have a gym there, and he has a bunch of fighters under his stable. So that's very possible.
Right.
But I'm going to ask Showdown Joe about that. Speaking of which, before we get to the main card, do you have any questions for Showdown Joe? I'm going to have him on in about 10 minutes. You have anything specific you would like to ask him?
Oh.
I'll give you a minute on that one. How's that? Let it stroll through your brain before we get
He's
off.
actually from Toronto, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. He's like a realtor. I have him on like LinkedIn, so he's like sharing like mortgage tips and stuff. So I definitely have to connect with him when I do get back to town.
That's funny. Yeah, he's a really nice guy, and of course, you know, he's good at calling fights. I mean, I think him and Trigg are among the best outside of maybe like Moro and Boss for Japanese fighting.
Right.
You know?
I'm really happy with the chemistry that these two have now, especially I know Rizin did a little bit of trial and error.
Yeah, you did see that it was announced that they're going to be on Fight TV. Is that how you will watch it?
Oh, man. Okay, listen. I'm supposed to be a hardcore fan, but I won't be watching these fights live. I'm going to have to watch them like 5-6 days later. I'm going to come back and then like either hit you up for – it's going to be hard to avoid spoilers.
5 to 6 days.
Dude, I am gone into like the middle of nowhere. I'll be living in a yurt. It's like a cloth igloo kind of thing. And I'm going to be ringing in the new year on this like icy lake in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going out into the mountains.
As soon as you get back, you let me know. But yeah, they are showing the main card on Fight TV. We're not sure about the Yarennoka yet. Trigg did tell me that they're for sure calling the main card. But they're here in North America, Canada, and Mexico. They're not showing the Mayweather fight on Fight TV. So that probably means that it's either going to be on Showtime or CBS or, you know, something weird. It's, you know, Mayweather's fucking this whole thing up, man. I mean, we've never had this issue before, you know?
As per usual. Yeah. And they let us know like way in advance that this is how you can watch it, and it's always straightforward. Well, but I think on Reddit, I saw somebody share a North America link for Rizin with the Mayweather fight.
Really?
Yeah. They said that.
What?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't see it.
I'll send you the link when I get a chance. But somebody basically said that it's available in Europe. They know how to watch it. But then somebody else came in and was like, no. One of the links is all the fights except the Mayweather tension fight. But here's a link that includes that. And, you know, I saw the pay-per-view price of $25, and it looked official enough.
25, you said?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's interesting because the one without Mayweather was 20. Well, we'll talk about that. Let's go through the rest of this card here, and we're on the main card now. Rena against Samantha Jean-Francois.
Rena. I mean, like, I think Samantha is not too experienced at all, and Rena, this will be a really good bounce back fight for her.
I can't.
Maybe a body TKO, body shot TKO again.
Liver kick. Hopefully. All right. How about Tyson versus Tawfiq? Have you seen either of these guys?
I gotta go with Tawfiq. I just looked into like what gym he's from and everything. It's really hard to pick against some of these like Russian / USSR guys.
I can't blame you.
He's coming in on the streak. He's got like what? I think it's like 9 KOs in a row or something. So I gotta go with him.
To be tough, and I haven't seen much tape on Tyson, so that's hard. You know, I'm not really making picks because of that reason. All right, we got Shinju Leclerc against Justina Haba. Yeah,
Shinju Leclerc. Again, this is, I feel like they're good fights and everything, but this one also kind of a squash match because Shinju is really their superstar that they're trying to build up.
Tough as nails. Tough as nails. I don't think there's a girl as tough as her. After fighting that injury last fight.
Yeah, did you see her scar on her elbow that she had from surgery?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, she in the last Rizin, she was hurt and she fought through it. Got cleared somehow through a second doctor. And I mean, look up her scar. It's unbelievable that she fought with an injury like that. All right. What about Sasaki and Manuel Cape?
I got to go with Sasaki just because he comes in with like a lot more experience. He's got that UFC experience under his belt. He's faced a much higher caliber fighter.
I would agree with that. You know, even though Cape has looked good in some of his fights.
Cape is a monster.
Yeah, if he could cool down and talking so much shit, you know, man.
I enjoy that, man. Him like slapping Ian in the back of the head.
He's like
I think he got some of it beat out of him too. Some of that shit talking.
Yeah,
that's true.
Horiguchi put it on him
because he's been a lot more likable in the last few cards. Yeah,
I totally agree. All right, we got Yuki.
He's too wild though.
Right. Yeah, we got Yuki Matoya against Justin Scoggins.
Yuki. That's who I have in this one because, I mean, like Scoggins hasn't fought in a ring before, I think, or like, you know, under Rizin rules. So I think that could be a big thing. Right. Although I don't think American fighters have had too much trouble adjusting, but still, I got to go with Yuki on this.
Yeah, it's still different. All right, Yusuke against Johnny Case.
Johnny Case. He's just bigger. Again, maybe I'm putting too much stock in the UFC experience, but I'm just saying, like, when you are used to that kind of pressure, and again, like, it's hard not to pick people with, like, you know, American fighters with that wrestling, even if they're not wrestlers, but they've just, it's a higher caliber of training and everything. So I'm going with Case.
I can understand. I think this fight comes down to if Yusuke cut his hair or not, personally. Yeah, you could see them punches coming, you know. All right, so we got Miyata in his retirement fight against Rizin Yamamoto.
Miyata. It's just way too much experience, and like that's one thing I'll never be able to say against Rizin, that he ever took an easy fight. Like it's crazy that he didn't like go slowly into it. The guy just jumped right in. So
I totally agree, and that kind of leads us into after the intermission, his mom, who has also never really taken, you know, too light of fights.
Right. So like, I mean, these two are the perfect example of why records aren't necessarily reflective of like your abilities. Because you know, it's like Conor McGregor from like 7 years ago facing Jose Aldo in his like second fight. Come on. Let's be fair, right? So it's just all credit to him, but I think the experience is too much.
All right, and so who you got in his mom, Miyu, against Mika Nagano?
Again, it comes down to the opponent having a ton more experience. So I got to go with Mika, although I do think the wrestling, Miyu's wrestling, that's always a very, very strong point. So that could definitely change things up. But I just think, you know, even in the other fights where she's gotten the takedown, sometimes she's gotten caught in submissions and stuff. So I got to go with Mika in this one.
All right. One of the fan favorites, Darren Cruikshank against Damian Brown.
Someone's leaving it.
Yeah, my boy. Because I missed him, actually, because I was right next to Detroit. So I wanted to go see him actually fight in Detroit or actually drop by his gym, but that never happened. But just because he's a hometown guy, I got to go with Cruikshank.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Hopefully you do get to see him. All right. Have you seen any footage on Gabby Garcia's opponent, Barbara Nepomuceno?
Yeah. Oof. Monster. Like, monster.
Yeah.
She's sick, man. She is super sick.
And so how do you see this one playing out?
I'm going with her just based on that training footage. The fact that she's sparring hard and looking real nice and technical against dudes, and they're not holding back. Yeah. I think, especially with how Gabby has looked, like, you know, again, not being disrespectful or anything, but she hasn't looked the best, especially when she reacts to somebody like hitting her. And that's just the people like flicking a jab in her face, and she still flinches and freezes up.
You know,
now with a jab,
as we see, she wins because she takes people down and lays on top of them. I mean, you know, and she's so much stronger than everyone. Well, my problem with Gabby is that she missed weight by 26 pounds last time. You know, I mean, that's you're not even trying at that point. You know,
right?
All right, we got Yuri Prohaska against Brandon Halsley, former Bellator champion.
Well, I'm representing Jiri right now.
Oh, nice. Nice.
That's
Oh,
a cool shirt.
did you get that?
Yeah, check out the back too. Yeah. So it's got the everything.
Yo,
so,
that's sick. That shirt is sick. That shirt is sick. I take it you're going Jiri.
So I'm representing. This was the hardest fight for me to call. I think it's like Halsey has that experience. He's a former champ and everything, but Jiri has faced really good competition. He's faced King Mo, and like obviously he got finished by him, but still, and he's fought so many fights in Rizin. I think being comfortable in the ring and knowing the rule set and everything, I would give him the edge.
All right.
Maybe that's my Rizin favoritism, though.
Yeah. You better pick him too. You got his shirt on, you know. If he's
exactly.
All right, we got the women's atomweight championship, probably the two best atomweights on the planet. Kanna Asakura against Ayaka Hamsaki. Who are you going with in this one?
Yeah, I'm going with Kanna Asakura, man. She's young, she's fast, she's strong. And like the age difference is not like a laughing matter. It's like, 15, 16 years? It's a huge age gap.
I don't know that Ayaki's that old, but she is older.
Yeah, because because I was surprised because Kanna is like super duper young. I think she's only 21.
20 or 21, yeah.
20, 21. And so like I remember seeing Ayaka during Rizin 14. And like again, it was a great fight. It was competitive, but yeah, like seeing that performance and seeing Kanna's past performances, I just think her youth is just going to be too much.
All right.
And there isn't a huge gap in their experience either. So,
and in the people's main event, you know, Kyoji Horiguchi against Bellator champion Darrion Caldwell. This fight for me, before you start, let me say, is a scary one as a Horiguchi fan because of Darrion Caldwell's size. He should not. I mean, I shouldn't say should not, but he could be competing at a weight class above this, while as Horiguchi could be competing at a weight class below, and has.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. But it's Gucci gang for life. It's Gucci, man. I gotta go with Gucci.
I don't blame you there. Yeah. All right, and then Floyd Mayweather against Tension, even though it's an exhibition match. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
What are you hoping to happen? Let me ask you that first.
Okay, I'm hoping. I'm hoping Tension follows through on what he said when he said that I want to kick Mayweather.
I think all of us are hoping that.
Yeah, we're all secretly
rolling thunder
coming from
at the last second.
Yeah. We were both Floyd fans, you know, but
all this shenanigans he's been pulling leading up to this is.
Yeah, and
I don't mind the head kick.
Yeah, and then he's making everything difficult for everybody, and it's and then he hasn't promoted this event at all. I don't know if you follow him or anything. He hasn't said one word about this. I'm wondering if he's even going to be there, to be honest with you.
That's also true. That wouldn't be. I didn't put much thought into that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he just like if at some last second he's like, yeah, nah, not happening.
Right.
But again, this is exactly why I love Japanese MMA. Bob Sapp was in Arashi, Mayweather, Tension. So. You know, most likely we all know what's going to happen. He's going to dance around for three rounds.
Right.
And because he's a master. Like, there's no denying the skill. He is absolutely masterful. He'll avoid it. And that's it. But it'll be really exciting because Tension, I mean...
He's got nothing to lose.
He's got nothing to lose. It's 3 rounds. He doesn't even have to conserve his gas. He can actually just do, like, straight, like, speed punches for 9 minutes.
Blitz him.
And completely fine. So just like boom, boom, boom. And even if one thing lands.
Getting knocked out, you don't lose nothing because you got knocked out by 0.
You went against a 50-0 boxer. Yeah, you lost it. But like, Japanese fans wouldn't care if you were doing it in the middle of like a 7-punch combo, just trying to knock the other guy out. And even on the world stage, who cares what like Western fans say because they'll most likely be like, oh, I told you he was a bum. Whatever. I don't care about that shit anyways. Or they just be like, yo, but that one shot that he landed. Because, I mean, again, in a combo that big, if he lands even a hard-ass shot,
well, look at it. Really, really one shot Connor landed on Floyd.
Yeah.
People spend months.
Yeah.
The glanced off his chest onto his
Yeah,
screen.
yeah, I wasn't even clean.
Angles.
That's why
Shut
I
up,
think,
man.
like you're saying, for 9 minutes, he has enough gas to where he can go blitz straight out. We don't see tension
Yeah.
start too fast usually, sort of like Floyd,
Yeah.
but he's going to have to only take half that round and then just start blitzing. You know, try to take half the round to get a little bit of timing, start blitzing. We're going to see what happens. Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us. I wish we had a little bit more time, but we are going to make sure that we call you on the post show, or you're going to call in, and we're going to make sure that your picks are all right, buddy.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
I'm going to talk to you soon, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Peace.